This episode of the Primal Scream podcast is brought to you by It Works independent distributor Kathy Sculla. Have you tried that crazy wrap thing? It tightens, tones, and firms any area from the neck down. It Works also provides a wide variety of premium supplements, along with a full skincare line. I personally use their multivitamins and greens, and if you're interested in learning more about It Works products or the business opportunity, call or text Kathy at 319-360-2009, or go to her website, kathysculla.myitworks.com. That's CATHYSKALA.myitworks.com.
Wake up. It's time for Primal Scream.
Hey, welcome back to the Primal Scream. I'm Matt.
And I'm Todd.
And today we have Joshua Coburn.
Nice to be here, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
Very
we appreciate
excited.
you coming in.
Yeah, it's
on
awesome.
a Sunday, no doubt. No
Yeah.
less. And it is... Give me a moment. It's July. Yeah?
Yeah, good job.
We're still in July. I'm going to go with like 28th.
27th.
Oh, so close.
The key is he never has a watch on, and he never knows what the goddamn day is.
I do
And
have a watch on, but I just never look at the damn thing. Usually when I look at the date, like the minute hand is right over the date portion of my watch. And anyway.
Well, we were just talking, too, about how fast the summer's going, so I'd rather not look at the date.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep the date on the down low so
I'm
I
going to
can
make sure my ringer's off.
I can feel like the summer is going to last a little bit longer.
And day doesn't matter if you're making every day pretty awesome, right?
There you go.
It's pretty relevant at that
Fucking
point.
jump in there, Josh.
He's right
Kill
in
it.
there.
It's what I do. Sorry, guys.
So hey, if you don't know what Josh
what I
Coburn
do.
does, he is an author. We've had a few authors on the podcast, but he is a different type of author. He doesn't do sci-fi. He doesn't do mystery type of books. He does inspiration on demand.
Right on.
Right?
Yeah,
That's the title of your
absolutely.
book?
Yep.
Is that the only book you've written, or is that the most recent one?
That's the most recent. I've written actually several books, but when it comes down to kind of where I'm at this point, that's definitely kind of the most relevant thing that I'm doing. Okay. Not that everything else previously was irrelevant, but it definitely is much more on point to where I'm at mentally. I'm in my 30s at this point, so you're very different than where you were,
In your
20 years
20s.
ago.
Lord
10
help
years
us.
ago.
Isn't that's the best part about getting older? Is looking back and going, oh, good. I came out.
Well, the cool thing is that you're in your 30s, but you still have a fairly decent time relating to the kids in high school. Like, you do a lot of youth speaking.
Is it mostly kids?
Yeah, I do a lot of corporate events. Like I just did MetLife like a week ago, in larger corporations. But it's usually more around business and team building and marketing and stuff. But with kids, it's the real raw nerve stuff.
It's like you
know
had
what
more
I mean?
fun with a group of kids and you came with a bunch of suits kind of
Are
thing.
you kidding me? Like getting in front of 1,200 kids and letting them just primal scream, as it were. I mean, they let loose, they get crazy, and that's the whole point. I mean, I take down every wall I have brick by brick, and it's anywhere from 6th grade all the way up to seniors. Sometimes I'll do some college stuff as well, but I mean, honestly, it's by far the best, because if I get in a room with a bunch of gentlemen in ties, immediately, even if I'm suited up, I look like a monkey in a suit. You
may
change
stand out a
that,
tad. Yeah.
There's
little
a few
bit.
things.
No, is
Yeah.
the body modification that you have done, is that something that was pre-speaking, pre-author stuff? I mean...
Yeah, kind of the body modification things. I was in that industry for just right at a decade. I actually helped set the state laws for tattoos and stuff in the state.
Oh, really?
They went into effect back in 2010, I think.
Okay.
But that's actually how I transitioned into kind of the corporate life and then where I'm at now, because, I still have that kind of punk rock attitude where when people say no, I'm like, I will prove otherwise. So that's kind of how it all worked out. But,
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, really that industry and that life primed me for where I'm at now, because I had to entertain kids, 14 to 25 were the age groups I was working on to do eyebrow piercings and belly button piercings and tongues and everything else, plus the heavy stuff. But which we can get into if you want. It's pretty interesting.
Love to.
But
any stories you want to share?
I got a ton of them. I got a ton of them. But really, it was kind of being entertaining because they're scared out of their minds, and you have to kind of calm
Settle
them and
them
keep
down,
them even. Yeah. So that was a good prep for getting in front of the thousands of kids that I do now.
So you are a tattoo artist on top of everything else?
I was never a tattoo artist.
Okay.
I worked in body modification, as it were. I did the heavier stuff. I did piercings. I did scarification. Like you can see the scar that runs down the right side of my face. I did minor implants, some branding and stuff like that, suspensions. So, I definitely...
What's suspension?
Suspension is, to give you, I guess, a little history, it's related to the Native American Oki paw with the hooks and the whole thing in the body and the hanging from trees and various other things. Yeah, so...
Well, there was a movie with J-Lo where she goes into the dreams.
Here was a really great thing, and then you talked about J-Lo.
You're usually really down with J-Lo.
I was thinking Little Man Bighorn with Dustin Hoffman back in the day where he's on the tree. That's what I was.
Yeah, but
Man Called Horace.
I was actually thinking that, but I thought, well, what's a little bit more relevant that kids might remember, and maybe the J-Lo movie,
A Wonderful Ass.
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah,
I love
very much.
That's a great.
Yeah, because he hangs himself, right?
Yeah,
he does that.
Oh, that's right. Well,
that's why I brought it up. I didn't bring up J-Lo just so that we could talk about
suspension in that way sounds horrible. But what do people kind of think of suspension? What's the idea behind suspension?
It's varies from person to person. For a lot of people, it's kind of a rite of passage. Really kind of
purification through pain type of thing.
Exactly. And others look at it just like a freedom thing because your mind says no. And you have to overcome that. It's like jumping off a cliff or out of an airplane. It's for some the equivalent of that. So and it's freeing. I mean, your hands and feet are free to do whatever you want, and you're hanging there with nothing.
Wow.
So
that's heavy.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
When he was talking about that, like your mind saying no, but you're overcoming that. For whatever reason, I was taken back to this CSI episode where they went to this pleasure house.
I was thinking Chinese basket too, but I went to a really bad place. Sorry.
I wasn't thinking Chinese basket. I was thinking like when they put you in that plastic thing where you have to put a mask on. There's two air hoses coming out of your nostrils.
Oh, right.
And you are vacuum sealed into this plastic thing.
Real Sex on HBO had that too.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't think I could. I mean, that's not what you're talking about, but you're kind of taking yourself into that same frame of mind of I'm freaking out and I got to overcome it and I got to trust somebody else to give me air. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
That would be nuts. Okay.
So suspensions, they obviously just through the skin, right?
It's absolutely. It's nothing like super deep or anything like that. I mean, you definitely have to pay attention to depth and stuff when you're setting those hooks in, but it's nothing like you're not talking into muscle and stuff like that.
So is that type of training? Is it just like on the job training? Do you go to a college to do like anatomy training to know that once you're going so deep, this is what's under there?
Yeah.
Think of it a lot like kind of an apprenticeship thing. There's no quote unquote college or kind of training classes per se. There's a governing organization called the Association of Professional Piercers that gets into a lot of that, and it offers at the conference every year, pretty heavy training and stuff like that about that. Best thing though is getting in touch with those who've been in that industry for years and years.
Sure.
Getting under their skin, if you will.
Ooh, nice.
And zing.
Well played.
And really kind of just, if they're willing to share, picking their brain for as much as possible. I had the opportunity to spend some time with a gentleman named Steve Hayworth. If you guys ever get a little time, check him out. Because if you guys have seen the implants on my hands,
I did. I noticed that. And I was going to ask you, how in the hell?
They're three-dimensional subdermal implants, and these are silicone, so they're squishy. But Steve Hayworth is the guy who invented that whole concept, and like you guys have probably seen like the Lizard Man, Eric Sprague, people like that on TV.
Sure.
He helped develop a lot of their mods and stuff.
Well, one of the real famous first people to really do like hardcore self-modification is this woman who wanted to look like a cat.
It was a gentleman who wanted to look like a cat, unless you're referring to Katzen, who's with this guy named the Enigma, but Yeah,
Well,
I'm
this
with
is
you.
like back in the 70s.
Oh yeah, maybe I'm not aware. Maybe you're hitting on
I'll have
something.
to look that up.
Sure.
I'll have to look that up later, but I'll get that information. A link, a picture, maybe, right there. But yeah, she slowly took herself. She was just so enamored with cats and lions and stuff like that she slowly started to change her features of her face to look more feline.
Yeah, I'm now processing who you're talking about.
Okay.
But
it is it isn't a much older lady, right?
Yeah, and she didn't have much for like tattoos per se. It was
Right.
mostly
Just
cosmetic.
facial.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm with you. I apologize for jumping in there.
That's all right.
But yeah, that's really interesting because that's definitely kind of the other side of the coin. People look at me and they're like, immediately I'm pigeonholed to whatever it is that they think I am. But in a case like that, it's much different. Same with bodybuilding and stuff like that. I mean, it's still body modification, however you want to look at it.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
yeah, absolutely. But that's a pretty interesting point, bringing her up. I'd forgotten about her, actually.
Yeah, well, when I think about body modification and just changing the way you physically look, like tattoos have been around for a long, long time, forever. Mm-hmm. And like the full body tattooing of the Yakuza,
absolutely.
It's so beautiful. The Asian tattoos all over your back and stuff.
And they do the tapping, like the bamboo tapping for a lot of those too. It's not the mechanical one, which is always...
Right, you can still do the traditional types. I don't know if there's any traditional tattooists like that here in the United States.
There are some traveling through the U.S. I mean, usually they're, transplants flying in.
Now, somebody said it's a lot more painful. Was that true or not?
I've never been privy to that. I haven't done it. I would love to. It'd be interesting.
That'd be sweet.
But it's the last on my list because I'm a wuss when it comes to getting tattooed. I'll be honest with you. I love being tattooed, but the process of getting it at this point, like I just want it done. Like when I was younger, I was like, "Oh yeah, it hurts so good." Now I'm like, it just hurts.
My biggest I'll talk about tattoos is I'm going to get two, I'm from California, so I'm going to get two redwood trees on my forearm. And I thought about getting the California bear and the star kind of behind it. Mm-hmm. So I thought, that's kind of different. Nobody has that. It'd be kind of unique. And of course, I'm on pause with my wife while we get the funds for it because she's like, there's not going to be any more tattoos for a while. Well, and and then I went and saw the movie Chef with the guy from Swingers. I always forget. It's John Favreau. Is that his last name?
I'm not sure.
He directed like some of the Transformer movies and things like that. But he was the sidekick for Iron Man too, wasn't he?
Yeah,
his driver.
He directed Iron Man.
So he's in this independent film called Chef. And what's he have on the exact forearm
that you want to do? Is that
the exact same? Well, not the trees, but the California bear and the star. And I was just like,
dude, there's 8 billion people in the world.
I know,
the likelihood of you having a tattoo that's similar. I mean, it's not even an exact tattoo. You could be completely bummed out if it's the exact tattoo, but it's not.
Well, I was telling my wife, I said, I thought about having the bear and then having the red star from the flag be on my elbow. I thought that'd be kind of cool.
Nice.
And she was like, oh, I kind of like that. She's slowly warming up to it. Sons of Anarchy helps a lot, As long as Jackson's getting a tattoo, I'm set.
Right. Well, I've wanted to get some more tattoos. I got my first one when I was 17. My mom's clicking photos, while I'm getting tatted up. And then I got another one when I was 19. And just recently, I was like, I'd like to get some more ink done. And my wife goes, okay, well, we're just going to prioritize a little bit. When the house is paid off and the cars are paid off and we have no debt whatsoever, that's probably when you should probably put some money into tattooing. I'm like, okay, so I'm never going to. Okay, yeah. I'm good.
It's incentive. It's incentive to get that done, right?
Yeah, there you go. I'll just work harder.
To totally make it happen.
Well, Brian Merck, who's a friend of ours who tattoos here in town at the Platinum Rose Art Gallery.
Yep, wonderful tattooist.
Great tattooist. And
nice.
I'm always kind of messaging him, texting him, saying, I'm thinking about it. I want to do this. And so I told my wife this year, no Christmas presents, tell everybody cash. Give me a gift card, Visa gift card, nice. Whatever.
For tats.
I don't want anything. Oh, I want a bicycle so I can do rag ride next year. Other than that, I'm set.
I want a tattoo and I want a pedal bike. For some reason, that just doesn't go together. That's like milk and popcorn.
Yeah, and rag ride just ended too, so I'm kind of really motivated to do it again. Yeah, it's such a fun thing.
Okay, so you are a motivational. Besides the ink, besides the body modification, which we'll probably come back and forth to.
Right.
You're a motivational speaker.
Right on. Mm-hmm.
And you walk into hostile crowds. I mean, you're almost like a comedian to where you go up on stage and you have to perform and you have this thing in your head what you're going to say and do, this kind of script. My wife would say, I love motivational speakers. Anytime that I can do some self-hypnosis, meditation, listen to a good voice, I love that type of thing. My wife would say, poke my fucking eyes out with a fork. I don't want to ever go to a motivational speaker. I don't want to be there. So, but you help with kids, and I mean, you're going into like a crowd that they might not want to be. I mean, teenagers are the last group of people that want to be told anything.
Exactly.
So how do you get past that hostile force? I mean, right from the get-go, you look different. You got tattoos. You got body. Or does that work in your favor?
You know what? It's funny, kind of the angle this is all taken, because truly it works in my favor. Every time anyone my whole life has said, "Hey, don't do that. Don't tattoo your hands, your neck, your face, etc., it's been great for me. I wouldn't, say to some high school kid, "Hey, you should get your face tattooed. Your career's on the upswing then." But truth be known, for me, it's been good because in the corporate environment, I stuck out. People might not know my name, but they know, hey, that dude from that company with the stuff on his face and the big ears, it's easy to kind of overcome that because their expectations are immediately low. Like, I don't know how in the hell he got in here, but he's probably terrible. And then they come after you, and then you kind of turn that tide and hand back to them like, yeah, look, I'm overcoming it, and then I'm going to prove that I'm actually pretty awesome, and you're going to love it, and then I'm going to make the sale, and everybody's happy, right? But it kind of works the same way when it comes to high school students, because we pre-market to them. If a school, it's Manners Motivation is the most student-requested event in the U.S., which is pretty awesome, because usually we market everything on social media. I mean, Instagram is like massive for me, and I don't push hard. It's just like, look, this is what we do. This is who we are. Check it out if you want it. We'll come. We'll change your life. That's it. And, people,
that's it.
Yeah, no big deal, huh? And it's pretty cool because people are like, what do you do? It's like, well, I remind people that the American dream is real because that's what I do. There is nothing that makes sense about what I do and how it fits, but it just does. Why? Because people said you can't do it, and I'm here to prove you can. And so to get back to your kind of immediate, smaller scope question, I'm walking into a place where kids are just pumped they're out of class. They don't care why they're out of class. They're just like, I'm out of class. And they have, maybe an hour and a half, depending on what part of the program we're doing. And, because I send posters promoting it, talking about bringing the noise and getting loud and all this crazy stuff, plus photos of me, immediately they're just like, what is this? Usually it's a dude behind a podium with a slideshow.
Yeah.
That is not it. When I walk in there, we're talking rock concert. That's what this is about. It's about getting loud. It's about getting primal. It's about screaming it out. But then it's immediately, I don't tell them how to live. I tell them how it is. And we discuss it. Because I expect them, when I'm giving everything, to give me everything back. And honestly, it doesn't work if they don't. I've never had a case where that wasn't happening. But I'll say, hey, my parents were divorced. I was freaking angry when I was 12. I was angry through high school, and I got in these terrible routines that essentially put me in a depression for 10 years. And it sucked. And then it's like, but what about you guys? And then I hand it back to them. I'm like, do you guys have the guts to stand up? I'm standing down here in front of 1,200 people spilling it out there. What are you going to give me? Can you do that? And it's funny because it's like my Breakfast Club moment, if you will. You guys will probably get it.
Yeah, I love Breakfast Club.
Because everybody's sitting around talking, and then they start to realize, hey, we're the same. And we're the same, but we're totally in different social classes.
Right.
And when those kids stand up and start to own that, and then they look around at one another and they're like, holy crap, I'm sitting here in a room full of, thousands of kids or 300 kids, and I feel alone. And then they all start to stand up because it takes guts to do that anyway. And then their eyes start to lock because the first thing you do, like if you
know,
in public,
that guy's talking.
You stand
it's
up.
the jock.
Totally.
It's the band guy. It's the choir girl.
Mm-hmm. And then it's like, man, you know what? I got somebody to talk to about this if I want. And then, it kind of filters down to how do you do that? Because, you can't just walk up to the jock if you're the dude who's trying to be the valedictorian and just be like, hey, bro, so I'm not into football, but I'm totally into science. You want to sit down and hang? It doesn't fly. So I talk about how to kind of, communicate and meet in the middle and make it work.
Well, I saw some pictures on your website that showed you like hugging a kid who had tears in his eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, you must be able to drum up some of those feelings pretty easily when somebody is given permission. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you permission to stand up and give me something back. I mean, that's a pretty awesome invitation. And I bet I would imagine you would have more people than I would think give you that chance. I mean, have you ever had to really work a crowd, or do people mostly open up like that?
I've never worked a crowd in my life. And it's because when I walk out there, the first thing I do is, like I said, I make them scream. I make them kind of let it out. And then I explain why that happened. Because I'm there to basically tell you about everything. I clean out my closets. I mean, there's nothing, if you guys researched all you wanted, that you could kind of drag out and talk about to kind of put me on the spot. I don't care. Let's talk about it. Doesn't matter what it is.
You'd make a great presidential candidate.
Yeah.
Try to dig up dirt. Go ahead. There's a lot of it, and I don't care about any of it.
Yep, that's exactly it. That is exactly it. Because I can't walk out there in front of those kids or even adults, because adults are going to be the first to try to dig in and discredit you. Because if I'm doing something that society tells you can't do, they're immediately going to try to find out how I cut corners to do it. And it's really interesting because adults can be pretty vindictive, especially if they start getting a little jealous. And I'm not saying I'm some great guy, but I am very happy and I am doing exactly what I want to do with my life. Getting in front of a corporate crowd, looking the way that you're quote unquote not supposed to look in a corporate environment really pulls that out of some people. You get the cynics that are sitting in the room and you can see them. You can also see them change when you're going through it and the light bulb kind of pop on. But it's really interesting to watch.
That's got to be, I would think that would almost be, not that kids would be less fun. I think that would almost, for me, to see that transition from a corporate adult transition from a kid whose emotions tend to be underneath the surface, so to speak. But to see an adult who really, if they're corporate, they're really fitting these molds, and
they've had years and years of experience to bury those.
To see that break down and change would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
God, that's cool.
It is. It is really awesome. It's interesting because it's that point that like everything you believe to be true kind of isn't true in this case. Because I'm not saying that, every tattooed person is a great person. And I'm not saying that those kind of social stigmas don't exist for a reason, because they do. But I'm here to reinforce the fact that they don't have to.
Right.
And you shouldn't be, reinforcing them out there. And those people shouldn't be tearing you apart for who they think you are either. But
I think it's a traditional, you don't judge a book by its cover. You find out what's going on before, not that you should make any judgments at all anyways, but you shouldn't judge somebody just by, what your first impressions are, no matter whether it's modification or tattoos or their attitude or whatever.
Right, but that's just listening to you, Josh, and taking that thing that you just said, you have to be open on both sides. I mean, you have to not judge the book by its cover, even though it's gonna instinctively happen. Mm-hmm. You got to work through that. But on the other side, if you are that kid who's different, if you are that adult who has had years of time suppressing certain urges and certain ways about your life, you also have to be able to say, I know people are looking at me a certain way, and I have to work through that. I have to give them an opportunity to know who I am instead of hiding behind my tats or my body modifications. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. This story is not going to work very well unless I remember who told it to me. The story was a kid was walking down the street and he was just what's that look called when they're all black and
goth?
They're all gothed out. They're all gothed out. And the story goes, the individual walks up to him and goes, all right, what do you want to talk about? And the kid goes, dude, what are you doing? I'm just walking down the street. No, obviously you want attention. So what do you want to talk about? I mean, that is a instinctively quick judgment call on that kid. Mm-hmm. That person thought, okay, you're acting this way because you want attention. Well, maybe they don't want attention. Maybe they just really like that look on them. So it's really easy and instinctive to jump to a conclusion and, oh, this is how they are. But that kid also would have to turn around and say, okay, I realize that I'm giving off this impression. If I want anybody to know me for anything other than this, I got to kind of meet them halfway.
You do. Absolutely. I was trapped in my apartment because I was mentally trapped because of society, because I believed what they believed about myself for so long that I was having issues actually leaving my apartment to go to the grocery store or whatever. Because, we're talking the late 90s, early 2000s, and, people would do that. They'd be like, oh, you're looking for attention. You're ugly. You're disgusting. I can't believe you do this to yourself. You ruined your life. You ruined your career. You ruined opportunities. And I was just like, man, I must have. But I could look in the mirror and be like confident with what I saw. Cause like, yeah, I'm finally pretty awesome. But then again, society tells me the opposite. You know what I mean? And I was very marginalized, but I wasn't ready to process that. So I got cynical and I got mad and angry, more angry than I already was. And it's pretty interesting because when I kind of flipped that switch mentally and started using that to my advantage, I mean, everywhere I go, people ask me questions, they stop me, they judge me. And that gives me the opportunity to be like, hey, regardless of what you say, what can you give me? What can we learn from one another? And that's pretty huge. I mean, people, like you mentioned earlier, give you an opportunity. They might be doing it kind of in a backhanded way, but I mean,
if you see each one as just an opportunity, whether it's backhanded or not, it could
it's
be
pretty awesome.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and you don't have to have tattoos. You don't have to have body modifications. You might be a smoking hot, beautiful, voluptuous woman. Guess what? I've already have some preconceived ideas about you because I'm a dude. But if you want to be taken for more than just a piece of ass, you need to work a little bit harder to break that mold or that idea that I have of you. If you don't want to be looked at like that, you got to work hard.
I see that. I see that differently. If a woman looks a certain way and she's not putting herself out there as this hot smoking thing, that's just the way she looks. Why does she have to meet you halfway?
I think, and maybe other fellas think this way too. When women dress, it's more socially acceptable today.
If you preface it that way, a hot smoking woman wears a tight mini skirt. Her boobs are coming out because she's got awesome cleavage. She's smoking hot. You assume that she's wanting attention from that. I see the correlation there, and she needs to meet you halfway. But if I see a smoking hot woman, and she just happens to be a beautiful, beautiful woman, and I've had sex with her twice in my head already after just meeting her, that's not her job to meet me halfway. That's more of me saying.
But just like Josh, he's done what he wants to do, and he feels great about who he is. But I instinctively look at him, and I have preconceived ideas. Before he walked in my front door, which is, I really dig this conversation so far. Before he came in the front door, I thought, okay, is he a heavy Christian because of the motivational speaker? Has he had serious turmoil in his life because he wants to help others and he feels like he's already been someplace and he can help other people get out of that place? I'm already not meaning to be, and maybe that stuff is, some people might take that as an insult, other people might take it as a compliment, but I just can't control the fact that things are running through my head. Same thing with women. I think women, and I don't know for sure because I'm a dude, but I think women feel constantly judged and constantly labeled. And if they wear a certain thing, men are going to look at them constantly a certain way. So if you don't want to be the flavor of the moment, you have
Don't walk outside and interact with a man?
No. They have to do a lot of the things that Josh has to do. They have to be aware that just like a jock, just like a nerd, just like anybody in band, they're doing something, and it's not like they're trying to place themselves or pigeonhole themselves into a certain mold, but they have. Everybody does. Everybody,
I guess that's where we'll have to agree to disagree, because I don't see a beautiful woman who is just that way being somehow she put herself into a pigeonhole because she is in a band or she got tattoos. That's what I'm saying. If you picked something that you enjoy, that you love, and that's part of who you are, that makes sense to me when you're talking about meeting halfway. But if you interact with just a beautiful woman, or a woman bumps into a hot guy, That's not his job to say, hey, I'm not just a piece of meat. You need to come meet me halfway. They need to be able to just be themselves.
What? And maybe Josh can help us on this, because there has been times, and I'm not a smoking hot lady. I'm just not. But there have been times where I have heard days after a meeting with somebody. I started a new job 5 years ago. Real story. Started a job 5 years ago, and 2 days after I started this process, there was maybe 10 other people in my new hire group. After 2 days, one guy came over and he goes, I got to tell you, man, I was really intimidated to talk to you. I just thought you were going to be an asshole, because you kind of have this mean look about you sometimes when you're not even trying to be, you're not doing anything mean. You're just sitting there listening, and you look like you're pissed off, like you've been in prison. So even myself and you, we look a certain way, and we have to acknowledge, we have to be aware of how we come across to other people. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
you have to be aware of how you're coming across to other people.
Sure.
And then if you don't want to be taken that way, you have to work like I am.
Or you become aware. Okay, so I need to be aware of how I'm looking or interacting. That makes sense.
That's basically all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's basically all I'm saying.
All right.
Yeah, it took me kind of processing what both of you are saying. I mean, it does make sense, because to your point, I'm who I am. I don't fit into categories very well, because I'm not some tattooed dude that loves motorcycles and, old cars, and I'm super cool into that. But I'm also not some corporate suit wearing guy either. I'm kind of both of those. And I'm also just a dude that likes horror movies and other, strange things. And, I don't fit a mold, but just because I don't personally fit a mold, that doesn't mean the rest of society doesn't place me in a specific place. And maybe I'm not hearing you quite right, but that's what I'm gathering from you.
Right,
okay.
Sure.
Because, I see that very much, that kind of the world defines you. I relate everything to music, because I'm a huge music nerd. And, I listen to bands talk in interviews, and they're like, well, we're like, the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, but with like a bit of Van Halen thrown in there. And it's like they're already kind of defining themselves so they can be put into a category. And while that super duper sucks to have to do, because chances are good they're only sort of like that because they like those bands growing up, that's not what they sound like probably. That's how they perceive themselves, but the world has to put their music under a searchable tab on iTunes to find it. Right. And that's the way I view us. I mean, to anybody who saw you at the first few days on the job, you were apparently some smart guy who got a good job, but also potentially was in prison, because that's the tab that your face tells them that you belong under. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's kind of how I see it. I mean, and you have to be consciously aware. I mean, when I met you, that was my first thought. I'm like, dude, this guy probably just got out of prison. I may get killed today. That was my thoughts. But
and I was thinking that's probably why he's,
I said that. I said he's outside in his car. And I was like, he's probably texting if you can't find the body, here's the address.
This is where my car is located right now at this time.
Yeah.
I'll be in a basement somewhere. Just search for me.
It's all good.
So how do you, when you, do you work one-on-one, or are you always group? Is it, and did you skip right over like all the therapy? Like people feel like you have to go to college and get a degree in therapy, whereas you're talking to kids and doing like a group therapy session.
Sure.
And you're helping people, and you're listening to them, and you're letting, a large part of therapy is to let somebody get stuff off their chest that they're not willing to say out loud. Like the whole primal screaming thing that you do at the beginning of your show. I love, because that's what this show and the title of it is based off of, is this feeling like we are so close, we live so close to one another, that there was a therapy back in the
70s.
Yeah, it was the 70s called Primal Therapy, and it was by Arthur Genove. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about how you have to get out in the woods and just scream sometimes and get that emotion out, because we're constantly trying to have to live in these molds all throughout the day, and then we come home and we're frustrated, but we can't be frustrated because we have to be a good husband or a good dad. We got to play with Timmy, and you know what I mean?
Well, I think this is why you and I think work, because talking about, we could research you and we wouldn't find any dirt on you.
Right.
He and I know every single horrible dark secret about each other's lives. And so this is a pretty open forum that we'll call each other's bullshit if we see it or we hear it. Mm-hmm. But we approach it from a place of, this is it. This is all of us right here. We still battle with the name change thing, because it's the one thing we're like, well, we're not being that open if we change our names and you can't see me. Mm-hmm. So we still talk about that, battling it once in a while, because we feel like it's not being totally true to ourselves and people who listen and watch. But
political correctness just kills me, you know, and that was part of this whole Primal Scream idea or theme. And so we wanted to have opinions about topics and not worry about the ramifications of our opinions, you know, with the whole freedom of speech. But then Todd has a certain career that I'm like, oh, we can't escape that.
Right.
So and at one point I was like, fuck it, we're just going to do it. It doesn't matter. And my wife said, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we can take that chance right now. And I was like, you're right. Thank you for being thoughtful and taking place in my conscience.
I didn't give it much thought. And now you're right. But yeah, just having to you're trying to, this show, or his job, I should say, how should I say this? His job is kind of like your tattoos and your image. Mm-hmm. And we want to be a certain way, but we know the world is going to look at him. Well, he's got this certain job. Right. He can't have these opinions. Mm-hmm. He can't say these certain things. And even though we know that's a reality, we still work as hard as we can to show people that there's guys like this who think this way. And we have to do what you're trying to get teenagers to do.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting because, you know, we mentioned just briefly, you know, politics of any business and any career exists. And I mean, for me, you know, like I mentioned, I'm into all sorts of things. I love like museum quality artifacts and collections and research and being just a huge nerd. But different facets of that would pull me out of kind of the okay realm of being like a motivational speaker. Do I talk about it a lot? No. Do people who really intimately know me know about all of my life and those things? Absolutely. And very easily. And if anybody does enough research, they can find that stuff. If they ask me, we'll talk about it. But what it truly comes down to is, at the end of the day, we're who we are. And the teachers and principals in the schools I talk at, I do my best to try to call them out when I'm there, not to put them on the spot, but because if you want respect from your students, not authoritarian respect, but true connective respect, remember that you went through a bunch of crap in college where you got your DUI and did whatever else that kid did that you're, you know, taking him off the baseball team for or whatever. Doesn't make either situation okay, but it goes back to, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that, look, I'm here. I have huge glaring faults. That's all right to have huge glaring faults. And so do you and anybody else. But that doesn't make us different. That makes us us. And if you can bring all that to the table, you know, really, you bring more than you ever thought you could. Because when you're cutting off, you know, half of you, it's like trying to operate with one leg. You can overcome that, but you're never going to run maybe as good as you could before.
In other words, for me, that makes me think that we're all connected because we all have faults. That's our biggest connectivity that brings us all together, is that we're all not perfect and we all have made lots of mistakes, and we shouldn't be judging anybody's actions because we're all kind of in the same boat. Mm-hmm. Hopefully how do you grow and learn and change as a human being unless you're always fucking up? I mean, that's kind of the way I think about it. I mean, I would hope that I don't want to keep making horrible mistakes, but I would, I want to assume that I'm going to keep making mistakes because I'm always changing and always growing, and I want to be a better person. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, my approach to life is just it's one big mistake. You would hope, and it's just always making you better down the road. That's why I think getting older is the greatest thing ever. I love looking back and going, oh God, I can't believe I did that. And knowing that I'm not going to do that again. But
yeah, if you can actually not do it again, that's great.
That's probably the key.
Yeah.
And then also knowing you got a really darn good story.
There you go.
That's the way I see it. I mean, that's what I say. When I'm in front of thousands of people, I'll unload something that maybe I haven't even talked about, or I do Q&A sessions at the end, and you want to talk about getting under the skin. You know, I mean, kids ask all sorts of stuff, and they're trying to kind of tear me apart because I am willing to just give it. And like, I have people ask about alcoholism and drugs and all these things because, again, it's assumed that I've been down those roads at some point. And no drugs, alcoholism was an issue. But anyway, that's for maybe another time. But I had one girl who I was blown away because, I'm generally thinking in kind of the self-help, the motivation angle. And she raises her hand and from the back of the room says, if you could go back in time and kill Hitler as a baby, would you? And I was just like, are you kidding? Like, how do you answer that? Because either answer is a bad answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of lives saved if I could, pull a Michael J. Fox and make that happen, right?
Right.
But then again, you alter the entire course of history, which may potentially make it all absolutely worse for all of us because of some other unforeseen thing. So how do you answer something like that? So, I mean, kids really dive in and are processing everything that's going on. It's really super interesting.
Well, and to throw you off. You probably get in the vein.
I got this fucker on this one. I got a good question.
Well, I told a story on the past podcast. I went and saw my first comedian live, and I was in the front row, and they had tables, and I knocked over a glass of water onto stage, onto him in the middle of the show. And I was just mortified. But later on, when I talked to him, he was like, oh, that was, don't worry about stuff like that. That actually broke up my act. I got to relax a little bit. You get in these modes of just going. And then something just kind of throws a wrench in there, and it just changes it up a little bit.
Yeah,
totally. So I was like, okay, that's all right. So it sounds, it's kind of nice when you get in a mode and you're doing your thing, and all of a sudden somebody smacks you across the face and goes, here's a curveball for you. Yeah. How'd you answer it?
Thanks. I answered it much the way I explained it. I was like, look, if I could pull a kind of a Back to the Future and do it, what I wouldn't want to happen is have my face in future photographs start to disappear just like they do in Back to the Future. So I don't know if I'd be willing to risk it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So the answer is
nice answer.
Not really an answer, but kind of maybe not, because I don't know that's a pretty heavy thing.
It is a heavy thing.
I mean, it's like, come on, like really?
I mean, nobody wants to admit that there was anything positive that came from him. But maybe my parents wouldn't have met.
Right.
For some crazy reason if he wouldn't have done what he did.
Right.
I think the crazy thing is that if you watch Back to the Future 1, 2, or 3, there's so much shit in there that we have now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, digital comic books, walking into the house and everything's got
we don't have a hoverboard.
No hoverboards.
No, those are scheduled for 2015. No joke. Check it on the computer.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I've read a few different things about it, and that's pretty intense.
Really?
I saw. Remember the
because I've seen some, but they're special effect ones. And it's like, God, how do you sift through the ones that are
real,
jokes and the one that's real?
That machine that was walking the dog. Like a little. I was like, that's got to be right around the corner. If we can take robots and they can set them on a certain course and they'll walk your dog around the block 2 times and then come back to the house, that's a piece of cake. You got a robot that vacuums your floor. It's all right around the corner.
Well, the Google's self-driving cars, they're based on GPS. So yeah, maybe it's.
And of course, the first thing I hear, I read that and I thought, wow, we're getting there. It's happening probably slower than some people thought. We're getting there. And the second article was right away. How can they use it for terrorism? Google, you put bombs in a car and Google, I'm just like going, you guys, why do you always
so wrapped up?
Why do you always have, well, not just terrorism, but why you always have to take it to this horrible extreme? To me, that's why we get back to some of that media stuff, all the fear and stuff that's involved when there's so many positive things that are happening in the world.
Well, before we hit record, I had asked Todd if we wanted to do some current events, and he had said no because we want to keep it positive, but that's the world we live in. And Josh agreed with me, I think.
Yeah.
Because you have to come into this, you're that candle in the darkness. You got to come in, and my kids are bombarded. The other day, they're on YouTube watching silly music videos like...
Handy by Weird Al Yankovic.
That's one of them.
That's a great
There's
one.
another like a Disney movie, the one with like Frost.
Frozen stuff.
Frozen.
Yeah, Let It Go. That whole
and
thing.
then the next moment, we have a kid running over to me saying, "Hey, your daughter's watching porn."
Whoa.
What?
That's heavy.
You know, I mean, it's all around us. You know, it's even around.
And she wasn't.
And she wasn't.
It was just it was a misinterpretation.
It was a provocative music video. But some music videos anymore, it's really close to softcore porn.
Yeah.
It's really close to.
I didn't even know they made music videos anymore, to be honest.
Still
Yeah, I think they do big time because
Really?
YouTube is so huge, and if you want to listen to a song and you pull up the video and you're like, "Oh, I really like that song." Wow, they're having sex
Yeah.
on the video. That's really pretty blatant.
So I'm huge into albums and records and things like that.
Cool.
Is punk kind of your thing? Are you like all music or?
You know, I'm massive into all music. I mean, I like, you know, old school, you know, Hank Williams and Johnny Cash. And then you roll into, you know, I mentioned the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and Cox Bar and, you know, with the Buzzcocks and all that stuff. But, you know, you move into like the 80s to Black Flag and you know, but then all, you know, the hair metal stuff, Motley Crue and all that kind of crap. But, you know, I also listen to Slayer and Pantera and Suicide Silence, which is why I still can connect to kids because it's about music. I play current music, Clutch, Lana Del Rey, Lady Gaga, all that stuff. I mean, it's such a nerd. But I'm a collector as well of old LPs, you know, Black Sabbath and all that great stuff. So.
And see, I grew up in the 80s, and so I'm a huge hip hop rap fan.
Oh, nice.
And
yeah.
so everybody's like, wow, your kids really like music. You know, how do they know about the Beastie Boys? I'm like, because I had to introduce them to the Beastie Boys. You don't find the Beastie Boys on the radio anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to introduce your kids to these things to keep it going. And Junior, my oldest, who's off in the Air Force in Biloxi, Mississippi. Hey, buddy. Well, love you. Miss you. That's all he listens to is Public Enemy and the Beastie Boys. And I'm like, you know, you can listen to other stuff. I mean, I just want to make sure you are a well-rounded person. And so he listens to country. He listens to a lot of different stuff. But I think growing up, when we're in the car together, that's what we listen to.
You know, it's funny.
That's the only bad part is we listen to XM radio, and I'm still a huge rap and hip hop fan. But turning on Channel 45, I forget the name of it. One of the old MTV DJs, Sway, has a morning show on there, and it's really good. But all the music, I shouldn't say all, 80% of the music on there, I just don't feel comfortable letting my kids hear the word nigger like that all the time. It doesn't make me feel comfortable. I like the music, but I was like, it's just so tough.
I can't have my kids in the back blaring it.
Yeah, it's just tough. So I wish some of it wasn't, and I know that I do consider it an art form and I understand what they rap about, but there's just parts that I'm just going to be a little bit more protective on. But that's why the Beastie Boys are good, because they do have their comments in there too, but they're pretty behind the scenes kind of comments, so it's not too bad.
Check Your Head, like, defined parts of my high school, you know, like, So What You Want, that song, are you kidding me?
Dude.
Like that heavy bass drop and just I'm with you. Like
and the fisheye.
Oh yeah, totally.
Camera lens. And so
I
when
know.
he and I were talking about doing a photo shoot to get promo stuff together, and the first thing I wanted to do was and I never told him this, was find somewhere to sit down and he and I both be looking down at a camera fisheye like that and get a picture of it.
Nice.
Because to me, that's in my head too. Check Your Head was one of my absolute, that and A Nation of a Million to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy just defined hip hop and music for me in high school and after high school.
You know what does crazy fisheye?
GoPro cameras.
I was just going to say that as well. Yeah.
You just got to put it on wide, baby. You got to put it on wide. So you are multifaceted. And I can appreciate this because I have a very close friend of ours who started a journey 5 years ago of getting a book out of his head and putting it out on paper.
Awesome.
And so I've seen him struggle with that, and I've been awed by his perseverance to be able to sit down and get the thoughts out of your head onto paper and to not quit on it and not to get distracted and go, oh, squirrel,
Right.
To actually finish that is amazing. That is a absolutely awe-inspiring to finish a book, to get your thoughts on a piece of paper and to have it be eloquent.
Absolutely.
And then it's very daunting, the task of getting published, because that was the next hurdle he had to go over. And he was so frustrated by it, he was just like, fuck it. I'm gonna create my own publishing company so that I can get my book published. I'm not going to sit around. There's people that we know who have sat on a piece of literature that they've created for a decade.
Right.
And every barrier he came up against, he just found a way around it, man. He was bound and determined. It was
Absolutely.
awesome.
You did body modification. That takes a lot of skill. That takes a lot of smarts. It takes a lot of determination to figure it out and to go down that road. And then you got into speaking and the business side of things, which is in no small part not daunting. I mean, that's pretty enormous.
Number 2 fear of everybody in the United States still. Spiders in public speaking.
Yeah. And then you have the audacity to be really good at writing a damn book, too.
Well, it's funny because I, like your friend, started out by self-publishing because, I shopped everything around, and then my first book was like super angry. I mean, it's where my head was at that time. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, we like it because it's raw and whatever, but, we want to make it this tiny little thing. And I was like, no, I want it this way. And they're like, no way, we're not investing in you. So I did just that. I started my own publishing company at the time, which became a record label, which became a clothing line, which became ultimately nothing because then I started getting published and could take time away to do manners and motivation and everything else. But it takes discipline. It takes guts, really, to get something done. But with the way technology is now, writing a book used to be sitting down and, keyboarding the crap out of it and feeling good about it. Now with your phones and apps like Evernote and all that, you can kind of, wherever you're at, you have a thought, you put it down, you send it to yourself, you kind of throw it all together, and then you sit and you edit it and you connect the dots. That's how I work. Yeah. The whole world, there's so much coming at you all the time. And just because of my phone and the internet and commercial life and travel, I am so ADD. And I don't think I was built that way. I think it just happens because you're just like, oh, shiny thing, shiny thing, shiny thing. But it's a matter of kind of attaching something of you to those shiny things and making sure it goes into a funnel so you have output. And that's the way I do it. But I can definitely see with the mention of your friend and kind of the time it takes to do it. If you're sitting down and being disciplined about kind of overcoming whatever your obstacles are, that takes nuts. And that's pretty awesome.
Do you still have a clothing line? Do you still have all those things or not really?
Lots of stuff kind of supports what I do. I don't have like a specific line of clothes geared toward this yet. I'm working out some stuff because obviously I write quotes for a living. I write quotes every day for myself online, which you guys can get on Instagram and Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. You can even have them emailed to you to kind of keep my head straight and know where I'm going every day. So I write new ones every morning and put them out there for the world. And we're working on some clothing that kind of reflects that because obviously I know which quotes based on the metrics that people really kind of take in. And I write them for me, but I know what people connect to.
You say a lot of we. Is there a lot of people behind you? Obviously you're married?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'm married.
Kids?
Yep. 2 kids. Yeah. Two
awesome.
Wonderful kids.
What ages?
6 and 7, gonna be 7 and 8. So we're getting close to that transition here. So
that's fun. I have an 8-year-old upstairs. So
nice.
Yeah. So the we. So is that everybody? You have a whole group of people that help support your speaking gigs. Is that how it is? Or
yeah. I might be the outward face of things.
Sure.
But there is a team of people that I heavily rely on. I have a team in Seattle that kind of keeps my head straight, and business-wise, I call on for advice. You can check them out. We call them the company's name is Curacy that I work with.
Okay.
But they're the creative creatures. So if you ever see them, if you jump on their site, they all have like horse heads and fox heads and stuff like that.
I saw that on your website. There's
on Manners and Motivation, we have some behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. And they drop me off at the airport, masks on. We're out to eat for lunch, masks on. Like that's how it works because they don't.
You
want
don't know what they look like.
I do.
Oh, they don't want to be seen,
right?
Because all the pictures, you had a restaurant with like horse heads and stuff, and so I was like, How do they eat?
Yeah, well, what's pretty funny about it is there's actually some photos where we're all like making lunch, and they all have like bananas and stuff up to their the horse mouth, and everything. Because that's as funny as it is. The cool reality of it. It's kind of this cool mystery, and if they're out signing some business contract and the company wants some photos for the website, squirrel head on. They're after it. That's how it works. Because truly, it's not about one person. It's about a group making awesome things happen. And that's why they're so unbelievably amazing, because they as a group really helped Manners of Motivation become what it is visually. Okay. I mean, what you see on the site is a combination.
Great website.
Thanks. Yeah, they're amazing. I'm telling you.
So they developed your website?
Yeah, we worked very closely hand in hand, which again, what company is going to allow you to sit down with them for literally 48 hours, no sleep, hammer it out? It's like, okay, guys, we aren't getting anything done. Can we take 45 minutes, maybe take a power nap, jump up, go after it? And that's what I did. I flew out there. We did it just in it. And then we all go home, and that's that. And then
I like the layers. I like all the Instagram pictures behind.
Yeah. As you're going down, as you're scrolling down the page, it's like there's a picture, and then it's.
Do you know what they use? They use Squarespace. You know what they did for a tool?
Yeah, Squarespace is one of the tools we use. Absolutely.
We're gonna have to.
Squarespace has it, man. I mean,
we're gonna have to switch over. Everything I see by them is great, and not that the one we're using is bad, but it's definitely more clunky, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So,
last September, I didn't know anything about. We had no idea about podcasting.
Please,
we had
you didn't take that the wrong way, did you? Somehow the website's clunky because of you? No. I mean, you are clunky, but that's not because of the website. I am clunky,
but no, I
better
didn't
watch it.
I just want to be careful.
I didn't take it negatively.
He's my brother. I don't want to ever think he's.
Well, I was just afraid his prison face is going to come out. My prison face.
You know what? Yeah, and then you start talking with me or something. You're like, oh, you're nothing like that.
Right?
That's so funny. Like I thought another really good friend of mine, I thought when I first saw him, instantly, like everybody does, you make a judgment call. And I thought, man, what a nerd. He's just a quiet little fella, huge glasses, real thick. And I just thought, he's a nice guy, but he's really nerdy and quiet. And he is the most, once he does open his mouth, he can be very abrasive, and we call it broomsticking. There was
oh God, that's horrible. There's my judgment right there.
Well, he was a supervisor, and I was a supervisor at a previous job, so we were peers. And he had been a supervisor for many years before I had become one. So I was kind of looking at him for advice all the time, and there was my company had brought in somebody to help us with union company relations. Like, how do we interact, fellas? Let's, not you. It was just somebody that was very square.
Right.
And so they went through a scenario, and they go, okay, so Tim, how would you handle this situation? They played it out for him, and he goes, okay. So do we have to role play? Like, yeah. So he walks up, he gets up. Hey, get the fuck back to work. Let's go. And they're like, no, Tim, no, you don't do that. Some small talk, do this and do that. Okay, now let's say you've done this and you go away and you come back 5 or 10 minutes later and he still isn't doing what you would like him to do. How would you motivate him? How would you push him in the direction that you want him to go? And he goes, I'd say, hey, I already fucking talked to you about this. Let's get going. And the guy goes, no, Tim. He goes, Tim, no. He goes, listen. I'm not talking about breaking a broomstick off and shoving it up his ass. I'm just telling him to get the fuck back to work. So from that point on, the term broomstick has affixed itself to him. And so if somebody acts a certain way, a lot of people in the group, because he has transitioned from the other job that I left, he's transitioned with me to my new job. And so if we're in a group of people and somebody's playing the fool, everybody socially is like, oh, we'll be polite and we just won't say anything. Not Tim. Tim will broomstick you. And he'll just say it.
And one of the first times I met Tim was at a bar at a UFC fight. And I was sitting there, and he had just met me, and we were getting along great. And somebody behind me told me to move or get the fuck out of the way or something like that. It was kind of abrasive. I was like, oh, sorry, didn't know I was in your way. And he turned around and went off on this guy. So he was trying to start a fight. And so I turned to him and I go, I'm leaving. Because that part of my life is long over, getting in bar fights.
Yeah,
so I walk
too
out,
old for that
start walking out the door. He's like, no, it'll stop. It's just Tim, and that's the way he reacts sometimes. And I came back, I was like, I just don't play that
But
way
again,
anymore. So
nothing like what my very first impression of Tim was. My very first impression of Tim was, hi.
right,
That's not Tim. But you break through those barriers. I wanted to ask you, on your site, you talk about all the different things that you help kids with and what you talk about. How do you help them when you're talking? How do you help them deal with depression and divorce? I mean, is it through your own storytelling of your own life that they feel like they can relate to somebody and then therefore that helps them? Or is there very specific steps that you give kids to work through certain issues? There's self-mutilation.
Absolutely. Cutting, etc.
Cutting, yeah. So, and those things are talked about on your website. But so how do you help kids work through that?
So to be clear, how do I assist students with kind of the heavy issues, depression, cutting, suicide, anxiety, etc.? I definitely do go through kind of the first part of my speaking a lot of times, and trust me, it changes depending on what my crowd is and how they're reacting. It's very dynamic. The same several points are hit on almost always, but it very much can change. And I have kind of been through all of that stuff. And because I'm willing to just lay it out there, it's when they realize, hey, I'm not alone. And they see the other people in the crowd, the other students standing up. And now it's not just like, me and them on the same level. They see that, there's 5, 10, 25, 45 people in their school that maybe aren't in their same peer group, maybe they are, that are also living, going through that, currently past it, whatever. And often, again, I mentioned that I try my best to call out the leaders of the school, not just student leaders, but, principals, teachers. And if they're willing to kind of say, hey, you know what, me too, get their hands up, then that kind of creates a specific sort of unity. And that is one way to kind of start that ball rolling, to start that communication that wouldn't have ever happened. I mean, how many, I used to go to school or work with a huge smile on my face and fake it, total mask of sanity. I wasn't going crazy behind these eyes, right? But I was insane, out of my mind, not comfortable with who I was. And then the second I started kind of getting it out, like I said, my closets are clean because that's what I do. And when you can just be free of all that, that is a huge thing for growth. And we have another part of, because my platform is kind of dream big, believe big, succeed big. And because, people aren't going to remember every piece of what you say, but if they remember that, then it's like, okay, well, how did that work? And, what were the pieces that kind of stuck to that? And part of the program too, other than just me kind of going into school and blazing through in an hour and a half, and I stick there and I do one-on-one with students. I hang out, sign stuff, do photos, really get into them, because they get into me. I allow that. But another facet of this is that for usually freshmen to seniors, we're going to start doing kind of a breakout session, if you will, to where we can dive into each one of those sections. And what that's going to do is, because you talk about it, you hear about all this stuff, you go to a seminar and some guy's up there like, you can do anything and you can be awesome. And then you go home and you sit on your couch, eat potato chips and, watch all these, negative films and go back to your old routines, right? Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. But what's the lasting impact? How do you get that to happen, to really change? The pull through is the fact that I don't stop communicating with those kids through social media and through those breakout sessions as well. We give them the actual tools to address it. Because how many people are like, yeah, when I was a kid, I totally wanted to be a pilot, or I wanted to do this, or I wanted to do that. And then their parents sometimes it's a teacher, sometimes it's just the world gets into you. And it's like, that's not very practical. Who the hell cares about practical? Who cares what your odds are? You got one life, man. Live it. Go do it. Who says you can't? Who gives you the reasons you can't? You do. And that's what we're there to give them, is give, like I said, I remind people that the American dream is real. And there are real steps that you can take to achieve it. And that's what we try to get across. So really those bits and pieces, the first part of kind of my presentation that touches on, alcoholism, drugs, suicide, depression, anxiety, et cetera, peer pressure, all those things, personal pressure that you put on yourself, it's there to really hit home and make you realize, you know what? I am flawed and I have scars, but those scars, they're all right, because actually that's what can propel me forward, because I have things that other people don't have, and I can now give them to other people and we can grow together. And that's what I think is the biggest, heaviest impact about what I do. Because you mentioned earlier, like, did you totally skip like the college, the therapy, all that stuff? Yeah, I did. I lived it instead. I chose to travel all over the world. I chose to talk to every single person in the airport that judged me. I chose to write things down. I chose to live my life. And now I can hand that back to people and be like, guys, I did it. And I lived in a small town with 3,000 people, filled with individuals who labeled me as the weird Coburn kid and said, you can't do that. Guess what? I can do it. Now those people come back to me and say, how do you do it? And why did you do it? And what can I do in my life to make that happen? And that was the catalyst to live my life the way I do. I mean, there's nothing better than kind of having that confirmation from people to say, look, you did it. I didn't think you could do it, but you did it and you're doing it. How do I do it?
And that angry place that you said you came from your parents, was it from the divorce initially? Is that kind of what kind of started it all off? Was that?
Yeah. I mean, that was the first time I could ever acknowledge like prolonged anger,
How old were you?
I was 12.
Oh, that's kind of late.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because most times.
Well, I should say, I'm sorry. Divorce can happen at any age. I don't know why it seemed late. Sorry.
Because now, like, based on social norms, they're like 2 or 3, because marriages only last like 2.5 years, right?
Oh, right.
Isn't that the way it is?
That's why I'm thinking that.
And it's really weird.
My wife's parents she was 12 when they got divorced too.
Yeah.
So.
It's crazy. I think that there's generations now that are, the younger generations look at it as, that's the way life is. Mm-hmm. That's the way it's going to be. When I get older, I'm probably going to go through that too. That wasn't always the case.
Right.
And I am, my generation, the generation right before me, we were kind of going through this transition to where divorce is taboo and nobody's getting a divorce. And if you are part of the 1%. You're part of this very small minority that's getting a divorce, to where now I'm almost 40 and it is, if you are still married, you are part of the minority. You are that 1%. Right. And it's just a crazy transition. Like my kids, your kids will never know what the world was like before the internet.
Right.
They'll never know what life was like, what the country was like pre 9/11. They'll never know what life was like pre-terror, pre-fear, all that stuff jammed into your face constantly every day. We lived that. You lived that before 9/11, before the internet. We were aware of how society was, but nobody's really going to get that feeling anymore.
Right.
That's profound. That's profoundly different. So with you talking to kids about divorce, I mean, if you were to buy stock in something, mm-hmm. and I were to say, I'm going to buy stock in a guy who talks to kids about divorce. Stock probably wasn't very high back in the 60s and 70s, but now you got to be through the roof. I mean, almost every kid has to be able to relate to what you're saying.
I always start kind of with that because it's so broad. And you say divorce, I mean, you talk about it for about 30 seconds. It's like, oh, such and such down the block's getting a divorce. That's too bad. So what are we having for supper again? Like, that is what it's become.
Right.
And so have the rest of a lot of American values. And that's why I say that I kind of remind people about the American dream, because the American dream doesn't happen alone. It happens with guys like us connecting. Like, I didn't know either of you guys before today, truly, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But when I leave here, if I need something or you guys need something, you got my email, you got my phone number, get me, because we can build something together. And if you have a solid foundation, you can build anything you want. Empires weren't built on nothing. And same with marriages. They're not built on nothing. People think they are. You pick somebody up at a bar, man, she was great in bed, and she's pretty hot. We can do this. But is that what it should be built on? Right. Probably not. But up until you're 30, is that what you care about? Pretty much.
Right.
So, is that what people in the 50s and 60s cared about up until 30? No. Push that back to 18, 19. Those wild oats were sowed a little earlier and or weren't sown.
Right.
And now people are kids with less responsibility for longer. So until you get, into that mindset, like you said, you hit your 30s, you start really processing what life is and what it's about.
Well, and
so it's pretty interesting.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
so Junior, his mom and I got divorced when he was 4 or 5. I think 4 or 5. I can't remember. And we're still good friends now. But we told him growing up his whole entire life, even today, because he had a pretty serious girlfriend before he went to boot camp, was you don't get married until you're 30. That's just kind of the rule. And he's always like, why? You guys got married when you're 20 and 21. I'm like, exactly, bud. We didn't know ourselves enough to invest in knowing somebody else. And so we're happy with who we are now. And we get along now better than we ever have. Not necessarily because we're not divorced, but just because we are better, or I shouldn't say better. We're just different people. And I said, you have to discover who you are first to make it work. If you, what does it say? You can't love somebody else unless you love yourself first. One of those old mantras. Yeah, it's the same thing. You can't know somebody else until you know yourself first, and you can grow and be committed together to grow together and make that foundation you were talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Right on.
And have you been married for a while?
I as well have been divorced. I was married and divorced. I don't know, about a decade ago. I married young. And was I young? I don't know. I guess it depends on your definition, right? But I've been married for right around 3 years at this point to my absolute best friend, who I've known for more than a decade. And, it's the coolest story because it just happened out of nowhere. And when I heard she was available, she heard I was available. We never told each other that we were into each other ever, but we were friends who kind of lost touch. And the second that I heard and got a phone call from her, she's like, hey, just want to catch up, whatever. I knew that was it. And I told her 2 days later, I'm like, I don't know what you got going on or who you're with, but you need to end that and get with me. And that's all it is. And it's crazy, but she was kind of like, oh, all right. Called me the following Wednesday. Is like, everything's clear. We're good to go. And you know what? It's been good to go since.
That's awesome.
That's the truth. But I've known her inside and out for a long time. That's what it takes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, that's a great story. That's nice. Simple and to the point.
Yeah.
Holy
and you know
cow.
what? It's the support from that woman. Again, with the values. She grew up in a small town. She knows that good stuff happens at home, and that's where it starts for the kids. It starts for me. Behind every great man is a better woman, right? Whatever credit I get, it really goes back to my wife, because I've been doing this stuff for years, but I am here where I'm at in life right now, mostly because of the support she gives me. There's no stopping us when you got that. It's awesome.
There's
very cool.
I have a few friends who,
not a few, a couple.
I'm sorry, less than a few, couple. But there's a lot of people that I know that I interact with who they have horrible home lives, and I really, when I listen to them and I talk to them, one, it's almost nice that I know people who have terrible home lives, because then I come home and I'm like, oh my God, baby, I so appreciate what we have, But if your job, not everybody has a job where they can go and they're doing exactly what they want to do, like you, right? And that's you have to work hard at figuring out what do you want to do, and then how can you survive off doing what you want to do? How are you going to be successful at it? But a lot of people can't even reach that step, so they just get a job to pay the bills, and you're not happy at it. So there's so many people that do that, and then they go home, and where your home should be sanctuary, where you should be able to just shed all the anger and frustration and all this crap from your work that you've had to put up with because you're not doing what you're wanting to do, and their home lives suck, and they're fighting, and it's just miserable. And I think to myself, how do we get past that? How do people, once and I've been divorced, And once you get shackled, because you really do, you get the ball and chain. It's a negative connotation, but you get connected, shackled to a spouse. And then once you have kids, guess what? That's even more of a ball and chain. I know it sounds negative, and in some cases it is. But it's a connection. I should just say it's a connection, okay? It's a connection that you're going to have for your entire life. Every decision that you make, you have to have some type of thought for, how's this going to affect my kids? How's this going to affect my wife? I can't just, before you're married, before you have kids, you can be like, yeah, I'm going to go to Canada, or I'm going to go to Florida, and I'm going to be a speaker, and I'm going to get hoops in my ears, and I'm going to do whatever I want. And then you get married, and you're like, okay, I got to make sure that life at home is good. I got to make sure that we don't lose that flame that we started with. There's roles and responsibilities, and then I got to be able to provide in some way, shape, or form, and I have to hopefully have chosen somebody who's going to be understanding and to be able to give me time and to be a cheerleader.
Well, that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, especially for in your position, that sounds like she knew you knew each other for 10 years. There wasn't much you didn't know about each other. So the foundation was set long before you guys even thought you were going to be together, probably.
It was very much. But I think to kind of go along with everything you're saying is a lot of times people go into things looking at, number one, these are the things I don't like about the person, and this is what I'm going to change about them. And never thinking, I love them for who they are, and how can I contribute to make their life better? If you go into anything like that, it's going to be a lot easier. Because if you go in like, yeah, that dude drinks an awful lot, and I really don't love that, but I'm willing to accept that for the rest of my life, that it could get better, it could get worse, chances are good, it's going to remain the same. And you're willing to accept that, great. But if you're not willing to accept that that's the way it is, and you think that you're going to change them, no, you're going to drive them to drink more, because all you're saying is stop drinking. I hate that you drink all the time. Why? I come home, you're drinking. And then they drink more. So you're contributing to the problem, not contributing to making them better or a better person. And, if that's who they are and they're happy with who they are, can we not support that? As long as they're healthy, et cetera, et cetera. But when I went into it, my wife was a smoker. I hate smoking. And she knew I did. And she's like, I'm sorry I didn't tell you that I still smoke and yada, yada. I'm like, you know what? That's who you are. And I'm making the choice to be here with you. If that's what you're going to do, then that's what you're going to do. She doesn't smoke now. I never harped on her. I never told her not to. When she would ask about it or talk to me about it, all I would say was, look, I want you here with me in my life longer. That's what I want. And if it means you smoke more, but you exercise like a mad woman and just get absolutely crazy healthy on the other end, okay. I mean, that doesn't mean she smells better because of smoking. But,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I was there to support her and what she wanted to do. Not to say, you need to quit smoking if we're going to be together. No, that's who you are. That's maybe not what defined her, but it was a part of her. And I didn't go in thinking, man, I'm gonna change that before we get married. No way, that would have just ruined us.
Right.
And same thing with me. I work. I'm a workaholic. I overdo anything worth doing. For me, is worth like way overdoing. If you guys didn't notice visually, and that's truly what it's always been about for me. You can never work hard enough. You can never do enough. You can never overdo anything. We all know that's not true, but that's always been my mindset. I came from an alcoholic household, and everything was pretty extreme. So that's where you go, is pretty extreme. And she knew that about me, but she also keeps me in check. She's like, look, yes, do it. In order to be successful in your own business, you got to nail it. You got to be on it. You got to do things you don't want to do. You got to, really just make an effort all the time. Sometimes that means staying up really late, getting up really early, but that doesn't mean taking away time from your family. That doesn't mean taking away time from your spouse, etc. But that's the plus. She knows that there's always a sacrifice, but if I'm screwing up, she's going to be like, hey, you told me when you're not on target to let you know. I'm letting you know. And I would make adjustments and move on. But she never would say, you need to quit doing that because it's ruining our family. No, you need to make adjustments so you can do it better and be a better dad or be a better husband. that's what makes us work. And I'm not saying it's the best way. I'm just saying it's a good way.
That's a nice code, like a nice code. Like, hey, you're not on target. You know,
right?
My neighbors, when they say, "Hey, so are we going to clean the house?" That's code for something. You know,
Nice.
When I ask my lady, I try to do it every couple months. You know, is there anything that I'm doing that is driving you crazy, that I'm letting slip, or that you need help with? You know, I learned this from my first marriage because I never asked in my first marriage.
Right.
And with this marriage, I usually say that right after sex. So she's hopefully not thinking about anything negative. Hopefully.
You point at the screen like she actually watches this podcast.
No, I looked like that because I thought maybe somebody would find that funny. But I'll say that, and 9 times out of 10, she'll be like, no, you know, thanks for asking. I mean, she cares that I even care.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But normally she's like, no. So, but then I look at it as, oh, okay. I got the free card to just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yep. Consideration goes a darn long way, doesn't it? That's
does.
why if, you go to the grocery store and you're there to pick up, some diapers and a case of soda, if you grab one little thing for your wife that she likes, I don't care if it's a Snickers or whatever she's into, and just toss it on the counter. It's like, hey, did you get that for me? It's like, yeah, I totally did.
Yeah, I was totally thinking of it.
Yeah. And then it's just like, oh, that was sweet. It's like, I know, wasn't it? But it comes around. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It goes a long damn way. But think, if you did that for everybody, what if you commute? Like, a lot of people commute and they walk to work at this point. I mean, we're, especially in bigger cities, you're in Chicago, you're walking. But think, you see the same dude at like 7:48 in the morning, because we're all on a schedule, and it's like, oh gosh, all the time, that same guy. But what if he's always carrying like the same Starbucks? You always see it's got the little check mark on it. You know what he's carrying. As awkward as it might be, just grab one when you grab yours for them. Just walk by and be like, hey bro, here you go. I noticed that you're, always half gone about now. Have a good day. They may think you totally are just off the wall weird and probably are trying to poison them.
Yeah.
But
Best
chances are good. Yeah. This total stranger changed my day. I was having a negative morning. And where are they doing it? Social media. Hopefully they'll tag you. The next day they'll be like, hey man, what was your name? I'm going to tag you in this because you totally made my day. But if you can do that for your wife in your own home, which is where it should start, for your kids, whatever, take it outside. Just think what happens when you do that. And now you have some guy you see every day that you're learning something from. Maybe you both leave 5 minutes early and sit down on a park bench and discuss something cool. Maybe it's about Black Flag or records or, whatever they're into. Or maybe it's just about, dude, I see you're always on time, man. You're so disciplined. That rocks. Maybe that's all it is. But it's something you gained from one little minute change because you're considerate. It's insanity what happens. It's a huge opportunity.
When did you feel like that's a pretty great mindset, because you must, maybe it's just the way you live your life now, but you must think of things like that, or of ways of being like that quite a bit. Or is it just the way you live your life now that you're always looking for the next opportunity to be considerate, to be thoughtful for other people? And is that what you've turned into what you do for a living?
Yeah. That's, because, it really started with my grandmother, as crazy as this is going to sound. She's 4'11", this tiny, tiny little woman. And, she would hug everyone. We would go to like Walmart, there's 87 checkout lines. She would go through one, and then she would go hug every single person at the register on the way out the door. And they would know her as like this hug lady, right? And she would do that everywhere. People welcome in her home, hug, give them a kiss on the cheek, whatever. And like, that was profoundly impactful for me. And of course I didn't do that because, I was a tattooed dude and there's no way. I'm much more like that now. And I don't hug everyone at like Walmart or the grocery store when I'm shopping, but I do very much try to kind of give something to leave behind, because chances are good people are taking something from you anyway, whether it's a judgment or whatever. But because of my travels and people staring at me in airports and stuff, like I said, there's always an opportunity there because they're looking at me, and their chances are good they're going to be like, yeah, I saw this guy, big ears, weird stuff on his forehead, I don't know, it's crazy, at their dinner table. But what if I gave them something more? Because they're taking it from me anyway. So if they're staring, I'd be like, hey, what's up? How are you today? And then their like eyes are huge and like, oh my God, I have to engage. And, I give them something to take. So it really came out of everything I hated, which was the judgments. Now I take that and turn it around. I mean, it's a little more extreme because I mentioned earlier that I take everything a little bit maybe too far in some people's eyes. But if I'm leaving a hotel, I try to leave a note like, hey, thanks for the service. You guys rock. See you later. But, or same at, like just a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, we went to a Culver's, right, to get some food for our kids while we were out and about. And there's this like 16-year-old kid. And I mean, he was amazing. He was just nice. He greeted everybody. He was delivering everybody's food. And he smiled, said, please, thank you. Just really good customer service. At 16, you don't see that much. And I was like, hey, buddy, can I get a photo with you? And he's like, who are you and why? And I'm like, because this is awesome and what you do should be acknowledged, and it's not. So, we did the whole selfie thing, and I posted it up. I'm like, this is this kid, and I tagged him because he gave me all his information. And I'm like, this is who he is. This is what he does. And he's just doing what he thinks right. And a lot of us aren't. Just take note. And man, that was huge for that kid. It was huge for me. And hopefully it's a good example for a lot of other kids, So I always try to give it to someone else because really the ball's in their court to make their life what they want it. But if I can make their day better, I will. So long story short, I turned into how I am in my past, into my life. I get paid to do what I love and to make people's lives better. That certainly doesn't suck.
How old were you when you got your first tattoo?
I was 15 when it was legal in the state to do that. I got a sweet comedy and tragedy mask from the cover of Motley Crue's Theater of Pain.
Sweet.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Still have it. Yeah.
What's your most a couple of things. What's your most meaningful tattoo? Right when you're taking a drink.
Yeah, it's all good. Good question. My most meaningful tattoo is the one that's on my forehead. The 3 circular dots that are kind of various sizes. Because it represents your body, your mind, and your environment. And that's really, this like summarizes who I am visually to other people. Like you get what you get is really what it represents. Like those 3 things are what makes you, right? Your body, your mind, and your environment. What else is there? You surround yourself with crappy people, guess what? You're like, probably sucks. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are better than you, smarter than you, more successful than you, you'll probably make them peers. And then as they grow, so will you. And that's kind of what it represents. And that was pretty funny, your mention of the guy having the same tattoo as you and that being a concern because just over the last several months, people have started getting these dots tattooed on them. There's a couple people with them on their legs, a couple people with them on their arms and stuff. And like, you want to talk about intense. And it's like, oh man, they have it, but like, they're stuck with me forever, right? That's pretty intense.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's probably it. That's by far the one that people are like, you tattooed your face? That's the worst idea ever. And for me, it's the one thing. I mean, it's part of the cover of my book, and it's everything. It defines me visually. So when people see it, they know. So it's a good move.
Now, I don't have a lot of tattoos. In fact, the ones that I have can be hidden with a shirt. So, but when I'm in front of the mirror, after a shower, before a shower, whatever, I don't even see them. It doesn't. It's kind of like faded out of the picture for me, and for my kids. I'll say something about my tattoo on my back, and my kids will be like, "You have a tattoo on your back, guys? How many times do we wrestle around, and how many times does Dad not have a shirt on? When I'm just at home, and so when you look in the mirror, does everything still stand out? Does everything still have meaning? Or when you look in the mirror, do you just see the 3 dots? Or when you look in the mirror, you see Joshua?
Yeah, that's just it. I see what I am. But it's funny because, I mean, chances are good when I walked in here, you guys are like, saw it all. But the longer we talk, the less people see those things.
Sure.
Somebody has a big, disfigurement on their face, a massive scar. You see it and you're just like, man, that is intense. But then 6 months after knowing them and your buddies, you haven't seen that for a long darn time.
Right.
And that's what happens most often. Most people see it and it's really like this thing we discuss one time and then we never discuss again unless I get something else. I'm like, oh yeah, have you got anything else? Since everything you see is pretty well covered. If I do, it's like under my shirt. So chances are you'll see me whining around and limping or something. So, but, but truly, yeah, people don't see it, and I don't see it either after time, but it's definitely up front pretty shocking, I think, to some people, especially the ears and the implants, that throws people for a loop. So
you did a good job of kind of telling us kind of what led up to you getting into the business you're in and kind of what you're doing. What are your long-term hopes and plans? I mean, besides writing this out, what you're doing now, do you have some bigger ideas or things that you're heading towards?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, there's
Did I sound like that?
No, I mean, that's the general. Whenever I think of that, I'm like, I think of this old crusty dude asking me,
Well, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm sorry. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
You know what? It's always about bigger, better, more, right? I love where I'm at in life, and I appreciate everything I have. And honestly, it's about impact. I talk a lot. Like the thing that I always, let me see if I can get this right because it's off the cuff here, and I haven't practiced it for a while. But the thing I always speak of when I start out, almost any time I'm speaking, is the phrase "be extraordinary" in your word, be extraordinary and unforgettable in your words, in your actions, and in your life. That is what I live by. And if I can be extraordinary, i.e. not normal, whatever is defined as normal, and unforgettable to people, then truly I'll have a legacy, right? And that's my goal. That's what it's about. And I don't create my legacy. When I'm dead, someone else does that for you. It's what you leave. And gosh, I feel like I'm talking like the Ultimate Warrior in his final speech. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but my God. Anyway, so it really is about legacy for me. So what I want to do is some things that have never been done. No one's ever kind of toured high schools putting on like kind of this big cathartic, thing like we do. But what if you can make good deeds measurable? That has never been done to my knowledge, and we're working on it. And that, for me, is what I want to see. Because if you can know your impact, that little pebble you threw in the pond, per se, to see what happens there, then what? And we're working on making that measurable.
So it goes kind of along with that idea. If you knew that, I'm gonna mess this up too. If you knew what you're capable of before you even tried it, you would for sure do it. So it's kind of along the same lines,
right? Yeah, it's like, because really, if you want to do something huge, like I said, if you say I'm going to be, I'm going to walk on the moon, or like look at Richard Branson. I mean, he's like, I want to go into space. Everybody's like, you can't go into space. You're not an astronaut. Guess what? Virgin Galactic exists because he said he was going into space. That is it. Like, that is huge. But to say that as a 20-year-old and to achieve that as an adult are miles apart. But getting to where, if number one, you could see that it is possible from the beginning, and number two, understanding that with every step you're building confidence and levels of confidence and layers of awesome, then you're much more likely to succeed if you're keeping that right here. And just think, if you could just toss it out there to someone and be like, hey, I'm going to do this for you, but give it to somebody else. Because I talk a lot about having an army of people that lift you up and pick you up and pull you up. And the only way to create that is to put good out there, to have an army of people who want to do something for you. And the only way to start that is to do great things for other people. So tossing that pebble in the pond that first time and then knowing, oh, holy crap, I affected by paying for somebody's coffee one morning 1.2 million people over the course of 6 years, 5 years, whatever. That would be massive. And it's something we're working on because it's possible.
Well, and it's also a good point of view just to live your life on the assumption that what you are doing good is going to have, just assume that great things are going to happen from you giving back.
Exactly.
It's a done deal.
I hate to go this route,
go
but
for it.
My immediate thoughts are there's a large group of people that I was associated with at one time that think the exact opposite of that. Mm-hmm. And they actually, they throw it out there constantly. Your good deeds mean nothing.
Sure.
And it's all about if you have that relationship with Christ. And it's almost like they're promoting, don't focus on you can't win your way to heaven type of thing, So it's hard for me, and it's not hard for me, but I mean, it's almost like there's a campaign that is like constantly saying, don't work hard at being a good person. Don't try to be all these wonderful little things. Just have a relationship with Christ. I so much more love your idea of paying it forward, doing things nice for other people, trying to track that. How impactful would that be for me if I personally knew that what you said today affected 540,000 people, and that made their day better because of what they heard on this podcast today. And I could think, okay, well, a year ago, Todd and I came up with this crazy idea to have a podcast. I mean, it would motivate me to do a better production of each podcast down the line and try to have positive people on here all the time to how could I affect multiple people. Right. I so much more love that point of view, your point of view, than this other point of view of, don't try to win your way to heaven.
Well, and remember, not all Christians are like that too.
That was just a group
of people that we interacted with.
We interacted with. Real quick, I wanted to ask you this question: with the kids that you're talking to, and it's a couple different questions, and you talk to older people in the corporate setting. You're dealing with kids that are probably going to be going through what you've gone through that you can personally touch on. But then you're talking to people who are older who are dealing with midlife crisis. They're finally figuring out that life is not what they thought it was going to be when they were kids, and they're not doing the job that they've always wanted to do. How do you differentiate your talks like that? And how do you stay current? Because like we said earlier, 20 years ago, divorce, or 30, 40 years ago, divorce was not the theme. Today, divorce is the theme. How do you plan on staying current and addressing these issues with kids and with older people?
Well, I mean, to first address staying current, I mean, I'm an information junkie and an experience junkie, so chances are good I know something about it or have experienced it, and I'm willing to talk about it. So I'm hoping that keeps me current enough. Not only that, as business grows, as manners and motivation grows, it's not about me reaching these kids only, because what I have to offer is one facet of what those kids live. So not for 1 second can you think that there's not going to be other individuals involved with manners and motivation reaching inner city kids in a different way. Can I walk in there and connect to them? Yes, I can. But I didn't grow up, in that specific environment. I have to work with them on a different part of their life. But if you have somebody who walks in there that says, hey, I did this in this way, and I lived in the same situation or slum or whatever that you did, and I dug out, let's talk. That's different. And that's, well, number one, that's the better way to reach people, is to get the experience if you can. Number two, if I can't do it, I need to provide that as a business owner and as just an individual. So that's kind of the goal in being current. I might be out of it in 10 years, 15 years, I don't know, but I'll still be affecting kids and adults because I will be the catalyst, just like the show has been today for me. You guys have provided the opportunity for me to reach more people, and that's what manners and motivation will become. It'll get the right people in front of the right audience to make the maximum impact. To jump back to the situation about how do I kind of vary my talks between kids who maybe aren't there yet and adults who have already experienced it, is kind of condensing that. Is that
sure? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really, it comes down to a couple things, because if you want to change the world, it doesn't start with us yet. It starts with our kids. And if those kids go into the world with a different mindset and a different viewpoint, and with the American dream on their shoulders and the confidence to believe that it can happen, does it change everything? It absolutely does. Because just think, if 25%, no, let's back it down to even 2%. If we're talking marketing statistics here, 2% converts, right, of the people I talk to, and I talk to 100,000 kids. So you have 2% of that out there doing great things for other people can show the ripple effect, then you have a mass amount of people who never saw me speak that are pushing positive things out into the world. And if you start having younger and younger people affected, then the positive growth over the years exponentially expands. And that's my goal. On the other end, addressing kind of the current midlife crisis individuals who life isn't what they thought it would be. I think it's very interesting that that's how you kind of put it out there, because life is exactly how I pictured it for me. And I got off track, and I didn't have the outcomes I thought I would when I thought I would have them. But the life I'm living is exactly what I saw when I was 15 years old watching a speaker talk. And I thought, my gosh, I cannot relate to this guy at all. I can do this better. And then people at school said, you're crazy. I even asked to talk to my school.
At 15, you liked this.
Yeah, and it comes down to music and having frontmen that were strong, like Philip Anselmo and Chuck D is a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys who stood on stage and were like, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and we can do anything we want. And I thought, man, that's never been applied to kids in schools. And now I get to be that. And that's pretty cool to do and to be. But to get back to like the adult part of it, the only reason their life isn't what they thought it would be is because they didn't plan it to be what they wanted it to be. If they would have went into it and said, this is what I want, and that's what I'm going to go for, how can it not be that? Yeah, there's things. You mentioned a friend publishing a book. Guess what? That dude's going to have that book in his hand, and it's going to be exactly what he wanted it to be because he defined it, he worked for it, and he created it, and now he'll hold it. For what reason can that not happen? Give me one person who stands in your way to do that. It's us. That's it. It's only us that stand in our way. I don't care how many people get in your way. You shake their hand, you acknowledge them, you take the knowledge they have to teach, and you say, thank you very much for your kindling to put on my fire, but I'm going to kick ass tomorrow, and I'm going to get there, and I'm going to come back to you and say, now, if you really want this, how can I help you do it? And that's exactly what I've been able to do, and I've seen other people do it too. I'm not like some crazy anomaly, and neither are other self-help gurus, which I would not define myself as, but I'm just a dude that tells you how it is, and some people hate hearing it. As adults, they don't love it, but they're like, what are those tools you talk about? Well, you're a tool for me to get where I want to go. So are you. I hope you guys use me for all that I'm worth, because you have an opportunity to squeeze me like a lemon and take something out so you can apply it to get where you want to go. I mean, I know people, a lot of people. I assume you guys do too. That's the best tool you can have is other people. Take them bricks out of those walls, man. Bring them down. Start growing.
All right, so how do I get your quotes every day?
Jump on mannersandmotivation.com and
Okay.
sign up for Good Morning Motivation, and you'll get it. But yeah, sorry, I kind of went on a tirade there.
No, it's perfect.
No, I
was thinking Joe Rogan talked a lot. I was listening to one of his shows, one of his podcasts, driving today, and it's talking about Instagram and social media. And you use Instagram like crazy. We're way behind on the whole Instagram on the bandwagon for sure. And especially when I saw your page with all those Instagram pictures, I was like, oh my God, that's just a fantastic tool. I just am not sure what we would take pictures of.
You know what?
Well, yeah, there can't just be a ton of pictures of me, dude, since you're not a ton of pictures of the back of your head.
Before I go, I have my phone right here, so we have to get something.
Oh,
and
sure.
you know what? That's what it's about. That stuff is kind of selfish, but at the same time, I mean, it's a huge catalyst to do great things. So, every day, push your mic back, take a shot of it, be like, this is totally what we're doing today, and we're going to kick ass at it. And then other people who are like, I really need that mic filter. That's what goes through their heads.
Oh.
And then, there's all those things, because then you start connecting. Hey, what do you use? What do you do? This is what I do. This is what we use. And this is the audience we're trying to reach. You're just building it, step by step. So Instagram is absolutely wonderful. I mean, you have stills all over the place with your cameras,
Look
man.
at the monkey on the wall, man. That thing right there kicks ass. And you're going to be signing. Are you going to be signing books at Barnes & Noble in Cedar Rapids?
Yes, I am signing books, and I'll actually be speaking for probably an hour or so on some of what we talked about today and some other stuff too, kind of spilling my guts. So yeah, I'll be signing copies of Inspiration on Demand the 15th, I think it's 7 o'clock of August, 15th of August at 7.
I will be there.
Cool.
So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to get a book and have you sign the cover, and we'll put it on the wall.
Awesome.
Up next, up next to Aaron's book, his buddy who's having a book signing at Barnes & Noble too. We're going to get that.
And then he's going to be going to Icon. The book that he wrote is a fantasy book, and it is, in my own definition, as great as Tolkien.
Sure.
And so he's going to be at Icon here in Cedar Rapids in October 30th. He's going to be having a book signing with a bunch of other authors and stuff like that. It's like a mini Comic-Con. Icon is. Very cool. Then next year we're planning on going down to Dragon Con with him, and then eventually we're going to go to Comic-Con.
Nice.
And I'm extremely unfamiliar with all these cons, so to speak. And so I'm just kind of been along for the ride and getting more into it. And I'm one of those people who, when Comic-Con was this week, or was it last week? And I just was kind of like, wow, so grown men dress up as stormtroopers and they walk around all day long?
Well, you know what? That was part of what my question to you was older people, myself included. When I was a kid, my mom would tell you that I asked her this question. I was very fucking serious when I said this. This is as serious as I'm going to get. Mom, what's my superpower? I just laid myself bare for everybody out there. What's my superpower, Mom? And she's like, you don't have one. But from a very early age, I loved superheroes. I loved all of those types of comic books and cartoons and stuff. And like as kids, you watch these things and you're like, I want to be more like that. I want to be more like that. I love that stuff. And for Comic-Con, you have these. Finally, I mean, it was in the infant stage for years and years and years, where people would just get together and dress up, and people might have looked at him like, "You're a Fruit Loop. Why are you doing that?" But I would love to go to Comic-Con and get all dressed up and be like, "Yeah, I'm playing the part of a superhero. This is great."
When Aaron was writing the book, he started making chainmail and things because he has an idea in his head of what he wants to wear when he's there.
Yeah, he bought like a longbow. He wanted to see what it was like to shoot. I mean, to write out some of the scenes, he wanted to feel what it was like to actually go through the motions of shooting a longbow.
Sure.
It's a really kick-ass book.
They said the drawback,
awesome.
supposedly the drawback at Comic-Con this year was because Star Wars is the next 3 movies are all planned out, and so the next one comes out I think in 2 years. They were giving away some new sniper rifle they're going to use in the movie, and they were just handing them out to the first so many people that came through. But then all these people had to carry this enormous cardboard box around the entire day with this gun.
Well, you know what? That's when you head back to the hotel, you drop it, boom, you jump back.
That's what I thought too. But I was like, so there's some drawbacks here and there. But I think it was. I remember Comic-Con more last year because James Branson from. Why am I blanking on the FX show?
I have no idea. I don't know who James.
He makes the crystal
Branson.
meth. Why am I blanking on the
Breaking
show?
Bad.
Breaking Bad. And he had that mask. The guy made a mask of
his face,
and he put it on.
Wow.
And the mask was like one of those hand stitched every hair kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was much just like him. It was a beautiful.
He obviously had it was a much bigger head, but he put it on himself and then walked around Comic-Con and nobody knew it was him. And then he had it on. It was Jimmy Fallon, I think, had it. So Jimmy Fallon put it on, and it is almost like a little creepy. Like that is really, really real looking.
It's weird to think that you could put a mask on of yourself and go through something that big to disguise yourself. I'm going to disguise myself as myself,
but also
so that I'm not. I don't have a bunch of people coming up to me.
But Comic-Con, I think of Magna, and I think of all the comic book things and the cartoon things. But he's not that's a television show. But I guess he's playing a character. But see, we had a friend of ours, Erin Tapkin. She'll be on the podcast because she's down at Comic-Con. She owns Alter Ego Comic Books in Marion, and she's down there, and she had pictures on Facebook of her in line getting a book signed by him at the Breaking Bad booth.
Nice.
So it's not just. I mean, that's probably the part that I could probably get more into. It's not just
anything
cartoons.
Fiction. I think it's basically anything that you want to put your imagination to, And some people really like dressing up, and there's a whole environment. There's a whole lifestyle of constantly, like, you get a game, right, for your Xbox or something like that,
Right.
and you take a character from that game and you try to make a living, breathing representation of that character. And there's a whole lifestyle. There's people that
People go to such extremes. I mean, like really, like they find somebody who can hand make this one thing that is part of the gun they need. I mean, some of it's pretty. I mean, I've only gotten into it because you guys talk so much about it. I feel like I'm missing out. But
there was a custom leather. Chuck Kavanaugh has been on the podcast, and he does custom leather work. Rise Above Leathers by Preston.
Oh, nice.
And because he was coming on, I had seen on Comic-Con where people were going up and doing competitions of who has the best costume. Cosplay is what it's called. And this guy
sounds naughty.
It does sound kind of naughty.
It does.
It? But this guy had created a leather stormtrooper outfit. And it was the sickest freaking thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was just all leather and rivets and craziness. But anyway, that's Comic-Con. That's Comic-Con, Dragon Con, Icon.
Our goal next year is we're hopefully going to get an RV, and we're going to drive. We're going to pick chunks of the United States each summer to hit,
Yeah, nice.
and do a podcast like from Arches National Park in Utah or Yosemite in California, something like that.
Very cool.
And try to hit places around and stuff like that. So we've been trying to get new fun ideas, but Comic-Con is definitely one that is going to be on the list.
You know what's great?
amazing.
You know what's great about you?
What's that?
You really kind of embody what this podcast has been over the last year.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, you should.
Thank you.
Because we started September 1st, and our very first podcast, we did one about, what does Labor Day mean to us, type of a thing, and I went into the whole Hoffa type of a thing.
Nice.
But
That's what Labor Day means to him. Gangsters, people dying.
Yeah.
They don't know where his body is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Sorry.
say. Undiscovered grave, etc.
right. But we had started talking about different cities, and Todd was just jerking himself off about, oh, this city's great, this city's amazing, blah blah blah. And I thought, I was
Cynical.
very much a downer, cynical, and I thought, what's so great? I'm so sucked into this way of life of, I was kind of going through a midlife crisis. I've kind of gotten to this age of where, is this it? I wake up, I go to work, I come home, I eat real quick, I go to bed, I get up, I go to work. I got to, wrangle the kids. And is there nothing more out there? And when you work so hard and you don't enjoy your environment, this podcast has given me over the last year this amazing way to enjoy, finally, my environment, meet people that I would never normally meet,
Right.
and just be so inspired and positive. Because a year ago, I was kind of a Debbie Downer.
We were talking just the other day because I said, so Josh will be here at noon. We're kind of getting our ducks in a row, and we both have to stop once in a while. And we're like, it's been a year, and would we have ever had the opportunity just to meet people like yourself? We would just feel so. It catches us off guard, but at the same time, we're so appreciative because it's really more because it was a thing that he and I have done. We've known each other for 20 plus years. This is what we do. We just hang out and talk. And so I thought, well, let's record and see what happens. And that almost right away, it changed from just us hanging out and us staring at each other going, well, this is not going to last very long, to us saying,
we got to bring in interesting people. And that very first podcast, I had said, what's so great about St. Louis? What's so great about Cedar Rapids?
Oh man,
do we really have that great?
killing me.
Do we really have that great of sights to see and people to see? Is there really anything crazy? Because I'm so brainwashed. All I see when I travel, because I don't have a lot of crazy funds. When I travel, I hit the stereotypical sites, and I'm there 3 days. Boom, I'm back. We just went up to Wisconsin to do a podcast with a demonologist.
Ooh,
would that have happened a year ago? No. But again, because we are on a shoestring budget, wham, we're up there. Wham, we're on our way back, and we stayed at a crazy hotel. And if you want to laugh, catch the podcast that's going to be up on YouTube here Monday with Samantha Harris, because the end part we finished the podcast in our hotel room.
It's so sketchy.
For the love of God.
But see, we were up in Traverse City, Michigan, which
Beautiful.
everybody keeps saying about
Great
how
place.
incredible it is. Hey, did you go here, do this? I was like, I saw the library.
Right.
That's what I
I
saw.
saw the library,
But-
and there was a cherry festival going on, so we couldn't even book a room in the area.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, but the idea though is that so we did it up for went there for that reason. But I've had enough people who I've talked to saying, "Oh, you got to go there? Oh, well, make sure you go back during this time or this time." And I would never have thought of known about it if we hadn't talked to Samantha.
But that's
about
kind
it.
of a stereotypical vacation for a lot of people.
Right.
Wham! You go somewhere really quickly. You come back home, and you don't have a chance to soak it up. It has taken me almost a year to soak up Cedar Rapids, and I haven't even scratched the surface of Cedar Rapids. I didn't know about the Cherry Building. I didn't know what was in the Cherry Building. I don't know about all the cool people that are in the Cherry Building, and that's one building in Cedar Rapids.
Right.
You know, I would have never known you. There's hypnotists. There's MMA owners that have been
Absolutely.
in. It's just there's so many neat things about your surroundings, and you kind of, like I said, epitomize this year, this transformation, this journey that I've had, and it's been pretty cool. Yeah,
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty deep, man. I mean, I'll carry that around the rest of the day at least. But no, that's great. And I can totally get where you're at because, I mean, I travel a lot, but people are like, oh man, did you see this? Did you see that? It's like, no, I saw a hotel room, I saw a school, and I saw my car on the road, you know? Right. But if I can, you know, you get there early, you got a couple hours, don't do the Olive Garden, you know, ask the person at the front desk, what is the craziest place I can eat? What's awesome? And what am I going to see? Like, oh, just like a mile down the road, you can go do this. Don't drive there, walk there. You know, experience the bum on the street. You know, do the whole thing, take it in. So I'm with you.
When I was in the corporate world for a little bit, I did this when I used to have to travel, and so that's what I did. I mean, I made sure that. Just because I wanted to make sure I experience. I like the feeling of being out of my comfort zone or being in a totally foreign place. I just love that, and being almost like no directions, no idea what's going to happen around the next corner kind of thing. And so I'd be in Cleveland or New Jersey or Philadelphia, and I just love the idea of just walking out my hotel room and going, or the hotel and going, okay, which direction should I go?
Yeah, I'll turn left and see
what happens. Well, one's like Chuck Kavanaugh, the guy who makes the leather watches and stuff. He makes a point of when he's in a different town to ask somebody, hey, where do they have really good blues club, or do you know where I could go to get some really good St. Louis barbecue and then do something else? And there's so many people who I think are probably legitimately surprised, like you said, hey, can you tell me where's the oddest place I can go to instead of the standard, hey, where's a restaurant we can go? I'll go eat at kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's just it. When I want to be immersed in local culture. Like, I'm out of my element, so I want to learn about whatever elements there are that are not normally available to me.
Right.
I mean, when I was in Moscow, Russia, we didn't stay like down on Red Square. We stayed out in these like college type dorms, and we were kind of left without our guide and stuff. We were there for business stuff, and we had nothing. And like me looking like this in Russia, whoa.
Really?
That's heavy. And, it was intense. And, we were walking around just kind of seeing what was available. And, I mean, I would go into fruit stands and they like shut everything and lock it all up because they thought I was a criminal and I couldn't speak their language. And like the cops were like, all I would hear was "niet," which means no, and like, point to the door. And it was really interesting. But then like 2 days later with our guide, she could speak the language. She could let people know what we were there for. We were on television for what we were there for. And the whole world was different. So it's really interesting to see, if you're in the culture and they don't know you versus if they do know you, kind of what happens and how everything turns. But, having the opportunity to, check out Red Square and do all that stuff is really unbelievable. But then to be like around daily Russian life or, or maybe you're just in Louisiana and you got your Bourbon Street and you're totally down there enjoying yourself. But step off the beaten path, see the reality, whether it's the poverty or the rich suburban areas. Like, what do you get out of that? I mean, It's insane. Vegas is a great example. Everybody's like, oh, Vegas is so great. I hit the Strip and it's awesome. I've been to Vegas like a zillion times, and the Strip is beautiful. But if you go up in the mountains and stay up in the lodge and check out Mount Charleston and all that stuff,
or the lake, what's that lake there? I can't remember the lake.
Like Tahoe, or is that's outside there?
I was thinking there's a lake in Vegas. I'm trying to think right outside Las Vegas is a really big lake that's supposed to be pretty incredible too.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
That's a really good point, because I think the idea of making sure, because the sites are fun. As I was just joking around with my sister-in-law the other day, and I said, every time I go to San Francisco, I was born and raised there, I still go to Pier 39. I love Pier 39. Beautiful. It's a tourist trap, and that's what it's there for. I get all my Niner gear while I'm there. And
you don't have enough?
You never have enough. My wife says if I do get a Niner tattoo, she's going to be really upset, and I probably won't go that far.
You're a diehard Niner fan.
Right.
Why wouldn't you get that? I would expect
it's just too commercial for me.
First.
That's too much. I'd rather get something cool than just a Niner tattoo. Anyways,
it's like having a winger tattoo. Is that like
a winger? No, I think if you love a band, music is different than pro football. I mean, I have my issues with the NFL, period.
Yeah,
but I'm still a Niner fan, so I'm not sure I would put that on my body. But so I still go to Pier 39. I still like seeing those sites, but then there's places my wife and I love to go to, because when we lived out there, we found these cool little spots that we love to go chill at. So I think it's good to go to those cities so you can see the tourist side of things. They are pretty. The Golden Gate Bridge, you can't not go see that. It's incredible. But you still want to go to this Mexican restaurant we found, on Nob Hill, that's just the best and nobody knows about it, kind of thing. So I think it's good to hit those touristy trap things that you're there for 3 days and make sure you do it. But then the next time you go, hey, Facebook, hey, any cool places to go to when you're in, Louisiana? My brother I went to see him play in the Superdome in college for football.
Nice.
And I remember driving through to find this hotel room, and all the power goes out. And it's just black, no streetlights. It's just, and nothing. And so it's just my headlights, and people are running everywhere. And it was like a culture shock for me. You said put yourself in a position where you're just like, you see poverty, or find yourself in a scary position. I remember going, I'm not going to stop moving forward. No matter where we go, whether it's right, left, or whatever, I'm not going to stop moving forward, because I just don't know what's going to happen when things start. Not that we're going to get hurt or something, but I just don't know where I am. It's so foreign and uncomfortable. But those kind of things are the things you have a great story for. But I also, think it's exciting. You just never know what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah, it is. It's hardcore exciting. And if you're traveling, like you mentioned Iowa, it's, Cedar Rapids, like what's around here that's awesome. There's so much greatness in the state. And a lot of people overlook it. I mean, jump on roadsideamerica.com. Plug for those guys, apparently. But like, there's so much like crazy, silly stuff around here that you can go see that other people have just thrown up there and seen. I mean, like a couple hours south of here, you can see like this crazy suspension bridge you can walk on. And sure, it's 20 minutes of your time to stop there and see it. But there's probably 25 other things just like that you can stop on the way there, pack some lunches, take the kids. It's an awesome Saturday trip. It's great. That's cool.
The thing that he and I bump into all the time is whenever we meet somebody or do something cool or find something, we always I right away go, I want to do a podcast. Or I think of like, this would be a great place for a podcast. My brain already goes there. My brother-in-law was just telling me in Seattle, he heard about this place on a TV show or something that was real local. And he said that I got off the highway, and I usually go right to go to this one place that we're familiar with, but we found this place to the left, and it was a bar that was in the shape of a fish. A full-size bar, and you walked in its mouth, and it had different colors. Different colored shingles were the scales,
yeah.
And the bathroom. He said he's taking a leak sideways because the bathroom's in the tail of the fish. But this whole bar is a fish. And he said we spent like 7 hours there, and we had the absolute best time. He said it burnt. I guess it burnt down a handful of years past. But he said you find these things off these beaten paths that you didn't even know were there that are solely unique. And I think I'm with you, Iowa. I've always been in love with the state, being a divorced kid and flying. I flew back and forth between Palo Alto and here most of my life. I always knew I'd end up here. I always knew that I'd have kids here. This is where I wanted to raise kids at. Are you living in Grinnell?
I live in this small town called Deep River, which is the traditional dying American town. I took a photo the other day for my Instagram, as mentioned earlier, because a lot of people are like, man, it's so awesome. You do all this stuff, yada, yada. But they don't realize that I live in a town that literally has one business like 1.5 businesses still alive downtown, a bank and a hardware store that's still sort of alive. It's open when it wants to be because the old guy's still there and somebody might need some, washers for something once in a while. But literally the rest of the town is crumbling or been torn down. There's no gas station. There is nothing there. Like, I think the last census, said there's like 270 people there. That's probably because everyone was home or not dead yet because they're all like over 70. And like literally there's nothing there. But what's cool is you guys are doing this from here. I do everything I do out of, that area. I have an office in Grinnell and I also work, I have a home office and stuff. So yeah, in the middle of nowhere. But it's beautiful.
That's awesome. And my wife and I keep going back and forth because at some point we're going to build. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if I can just be just outside of town, I'd like at least to have at least 1 or 2 acres.
Yeah.
I don't need a farm, but just a little bit of space. Because
dude, you wanted a co-op. A co-op? Is that right?
For what?
You wanted a. What did you want us to do?
No, it wasn't. No, he and I have been talking about this for years, that if we ever got enough space or enough money to have houses, we'd build 2 houses next door to each other and at least have a tunnel that connected or a bridge.
Or a skywalk.
So we could eat breakfast together and we'd all hang, because our kids all hang out together all the time. And so that was always the joke. And I found 35 acres outside Cedar Rapids, and towards Ely, it was 36 acres with 16 acres of timber in the back. Beautiful. And I thought, I couldn't ask for anything more. It was relatively inexpensive. And I said, you could probably put 2 houses on there. It wasn't about a commune. It was more of like,
that was
it was
a commune. You wanted you always talk about goddamn commune.
I don't. You're trying to talk about commune.
You're trying to suck me into some commune, and it makes me really nervous because every time there's a commune, there's one guy who wants to have sex with everybody for whatever reason.
Oh man, you're right. That sounds bad, but I never meant it that way.
Well, it's if you start calling your homes a compound, then everything starts to change. Like, we live on a commune. And
compound. That's the word you keep thinking about when I say commune.
No, I think commune.
I think commune. I think my parents, hippies.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay.
I don't think compound like what was down in Texas.
But see, communes were
burnt down.
Waco, the whole David Koresh thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking that type of compound.
That to me was not a commune.
No, I'm thinking. I know that was a compound.
Oh, okay. And see, that's what I think of when
you
think about one person controlling everything and sleeping with all the women.
I did kind of take that from that. And
you morphed it all together. Yeah, that's bad.
I like to do that. I like to make things simple.
Well, I think of my dad talking about like everybody in the one kitchen all making a meal together, and it feeds everybody. So I guess it could be a little compound-ish. But I know it was 2 modern homes near each other, with normal amenities, and then there's the kids can play outside, and there's no traffic we have to worry about.
Don't try to justify it.
No, I'm clarifying.
Commune is just creepy.
I'm clarifying my thoughts.
It's just creepy. Hey, Joshua, let me ask you something. This is kind of a survey.
All right.
Okay,
all right.
For future podcasts.
Sure.
If we were to have broken out Cards Against Humanity. Have you heard of that game?
You know what? I haven't. The name sounds familiar, but of course, if I recall my limited knowledge of it, isn't it a fairly extreme game?
It's an extremely inappropriate card game. Have you ever heard of Apples to Apples?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I played that at one point.
It is exactly like Apples to Apples, but with really inappropriate responses on the cards. For future podcasts, what I was thinking of doing was dealing out 3 hands of Cards Against Humanity.
Nice.
And then that way we could kind of see what kind of twisted person each of us are.
Wow.
Our guests.
That's pretty heavy.
Ourselves.
That's what I thought. Our families went to Apple River tubing last week. And so I special ordered it and paid as much for shipping as I did for the game to make sure I had it in time for the trip.
I appreciate it.
But his wife is like that. She's Cards for Humanity in a person's body.
Yeah.
And so and we all live vicariously through her, which is the best. But it catches you off guard. It's so bad. And the worst part about it is it goes against your own humanity because you're laughing so hard at something that is so horrible and inappropriate. I mean, that's what catches me. That's why I was laughing. I was like, why am I laughing at this? This is absolutely the worst. But I loved laughing because my wife was laughing so hard. When she laughs, it makes me laugh too. So, but it's a really horrible game.
Yeah. If somebody were to actually say the things that we were saying, I would think you're a bad person.
If there's one thing you had to see in the world, what would it be? Blank. And I might have like Mother Teresa's vagina. He might have like
Jerking off into a pool of children's tears.
I mean,
Got
it's
it.
like all, I mean, it's really.
Oh man.
Josh, you couldn't. I don't know. I'm not sure I could come because they give you blanks to make your own with every
and you
pack.
only, you only have so many. You only have so many options. You have cards. You're like, oh, what's my response going to be?
And they're all bad options.
They're all
they're all-
Great options.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm with you.
exactly.
Well, I got it. I mean, I laughed at your statement that you said, which is completely inappropriate and
Right.
totally wrong. So I get where you're at for sure.
And the
with
best
this
part
game.
is you actually can play the game so that I remember having cards and I was like, I had to hand them to my wife and I was like, oh, this is the card she'll pick. Because
Yeah,
I just
you can
knew her well
you
enough,
can
or I know
manipulate
him well
somebody.
enough,
Yeah.
those kind of things. So, I mean, it is kind of fun after a while. You get past some of the craziness, but just reading them out loud is just wonderful.
Would you have enjoyed? Like I said, it might be one of our future things that we do in the middle of our podcast. Kind of.
You know, it would definitely break up a show, like, you know, for the listener. Yeah, but because of my role, I'd be like, hey guys, we gotta move that camera like right back here behind me because I can't be seen at this point, you know, right? I don't know. It depends on how extreme it gets. Like, would I enjoy it? Probably. I'd probably laugh extremely hard because the funniest things are the things that you probably shouldn't talk about, and that's what makes them funny. I mean, we all laugh at farts because farts are hilarious, and this is like farts extreme, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's one way to put it.
All right. Well, that's a vote in the yes column.
It's just we've bumped into, like, should we have these podcasts go 3 hours without anything kind of different? So we thought about breaking things up a little bit, even though we like the casual conversations that take place. This is one of our favorite parts. But
I've been waiting since the beginning because I wanted to get back to this since the beginning. With you were talking about all the different things that you've done.
Right.
You started out with the scarring
oh, sure.
thing. I as soon as you said it, I was like,
branding I've heard of,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
scarring I'm not familiar with.
how would somebody perfect the art of scarring?
You know what?
Without it being infectious and because, you know, different people heal differently, and to get a decent scar, but without going so far, it's just, oh my God, that's horrendous.
Right.
What's the art of a good scar?
Well, of course, art is always based on opinion, and, you know, what's good and bad art is kind of all the same, right? But truly, scarification in terms of what I did and what I think is, in my opinion, most appropriate, because, you know, I was never about, well, you can do this based on regulation stuff, you can do this with this tool, but you can't do this with this tool kind of thing, meaning, like, if it's a medical tool, is it okay to use for an elective kind of thing to do?
Oh, wow.
But if you're talking, you know, an ear piercing with a gun, like we're all familiar with at Claire's or Walmart, versus ear piercing with a needle,
Right.
one is absolutely traumatizing and terrible for your body. The other is perfectly good for your body and actually will heal very quickly. And
Which one's which?
what do you think?
The needle heals better.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
And
No, see, now that's why I asked the question, because the gun is what I see as being the norm.
it is. It's the norm because massive corporations use it, and it's considered okay to them. So everybody takes it for face value.
Are we getting into a whole new section of?
We'll let him finish his thought.
We could. Yeah, this could get heavy. That said, you know, let's just do it. If you're taking a blunt object, right? If you
Okay.
guys have your kids' ears pierced or had your own ears pierced with a gun,
Yep.
you know that it's like a sort of pointy thing that's just rammed through somebody's ear by an untrained person who put a dot on an earlobe and rubbed it with alcohol, right?
Right.
Like, okay, great. But truth of the matter is they don't know anything about bloodborne pathogens, about cross-contamination, about why alcohol really just dries the skin and doesn't really quote-unquote clean it or do anything like that. Also, why a needle is shaped the way it's shaped, those specific type needles, and why it should create a specific type of cut to basically displace tissue rather than explode tissue out the back of your ear and all over the side of your son or daughter's neck, right? That sounds pretty disgusting because you're hammering a blunt object through there.
Yeah.
With a needle, you're making a smooth cut, Just like, I mean, think of cooking, you know, you're cutting through a carrot. You want the nicest, smoothest cut so it looks the best. And, you know, it's easy to deal with. Well, you don't want some, jagged thing that's going to cover your counter in nastiness, right?
Right.
So you probably should choose a needle over the other rather than some high school girl who just is going to cram it through your daughter's face, right? But to go back to kind of the other thing, if you're going to take it a step farther, if you don't want to stretch your ears, you could use a scalpel and make a large incision in that ear if you're a trained professional, and put something much larger in it, which has a nice clean cut and it's going to heal well if you have somebody who's giving you the proper ways to care for it, et cetera, and those individuals follow through. So now what's the best tool for the job? Scalpel, needle, or gun? Well, gun's out because that's just a terrible idea based on all the data. But again, who's going to take on Walmart? Who cares enough to take on Walmart? It's about educating people, I suppose. Then on the other side of that coin, scarification, you look at branding, you look at cuttings, which is done with the scalpel or various scalpels, skin removal type scarification, etc. Well, if you burn somebody, that sounds really bad to say out loud. I'm burning somebody who smells like hamburger. You don't go deep enough. You have, second and third degree burns that are terribly painful. You go the accurate depth, you end up dissolving all of the nerve endings, so then it doesn't hurt really too bad except for around the edges. So, it's kind of nice. Can't get detailed though with a brand like you can with a scalpel, because branding, you can't stop heat. You know when you're cutting where that scar is going to begin and end ish. You can't stop the heat under your skin to continue to blow out that line farther. So I guess long story short, I always did scalpel type scarification. I traveled a lot, so it wasn't always, we'll just leave it there. And really it was about just creating kind of that next step and about taking it a little bit farther. And, doing a scar like that would really mentally, it's kind of not okay, again, because you're taught to not do that. But the more you look into cultures and various cultures around the world and history, it's been going on forever. So, it's kind of getting in touch with that primal part of you. I know we've talked about that a few times, but, that's kind of where I live at, is just, being in touch with who you are and your body and your life and how you apply that to kind of everything else in your surroundings and your environment. Because trust me, if you get tattooed everywhere, you're very aware of how much you move, the back of your thigh or the side of your calf or your foot, where most people aren't aware of that. It just does it, and they know it does what it needs to do. If you hurt there, you are very aware of it. So I know where my body's at and, what's happening because it's all been tattooed. So
in your scar on your face, do you do that yourself? Somebody do it for you?
No, I had a gentleman do it for me.
Okay.
That would have been pretty rough.
How old were you? Sorry. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Sorry. How long was that? Newer or back in the...
It's probably 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had it for a lot time. Yeah, I'll bet
divorce scar or
no. Gosh, I want to say like 2005 or 6. I don't know. It's no. To give you the story behind it, is I went to school with a girl who, as far as I remember, was young and pulled a pan off the stove, and it burnt her like down through here. And I always identified with it for some reason, because she would kind of cover it and I would ask her about it. And I don't think many people did. And I always thought it was crazy. So it was kind of my homage to her, not being alone, that like, look, it doesn't define you. It makes you who you are. So love it. And I have yet to find that individual again as an adult to tell her that inspired me. But so if you're out there listening and that happened to you.
Okay. So what school was this in?
This was in Brooklyn, BGM.
Okay.
Here, Brooklyn, Iowa for that.
About what time?
I graduated in 1999, so right around then.
I always wanted to make a T-shirt that said, "There's no sleep in Brooklyn," and then put Iowa in the corner.
Yeah, so. That exists now. Raygun does it out of Des Moines.
Oh, really?
So, no sleep till, and it's got the Brooklyn logo,
nice.
Brooklyn namesake there.
That's awesome.
So it's worth checking out.
Definitely.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that you did scarification on yourself as an homage to her. I think that is. That's a lot like, I take it as a lot like you buying somebody, like you acknowledging somebody that you're
walking
seeing,
past every day.
Yeah,
and
you're saying, here's this.
It kind of is, because I mean, you see all the, look at what beauty is defined as out there in the world. And, I don't look in the mirror like, I am so beautiful. I don't do that, but I am confident in who and what I am. And of course, people have always told me, don't screw with your face ever. It's what people identify you as and who you are. But as we talked, you stop seeing all that stuff very quickly. And for me or anybody else who's had a deformity or any issue accepting who they are or what they are, that's representative of that is really what it's kind of about, because it's a scar. That doesn't make me any more or less who I am. Right. That's just what you see. If you saw something else, well, that's okay too. It doesn't matter. If I was missing my right hand, does that define me? No.
Right. Yeah.
The experience may define me. It may have changed the entire course of my life, but that visually does not define who I am.
And that, and I don't know if it's just human beings or if it's Americans but because of the TV we watch, and we've harped on this stuff before, but because it seems like a lot of reality TV is so judgmental. That's all some of the TV like Bravo or E or something like that. Yeah. That's all the shows is literally judging other people all the time. And so then they get to define what is normal and what is not normal. And most people don't fit into those. I would say the majority of people just don't fit into those normal and not normal. Now, I guess you could do, the skinny and obese or in shape or health. Some of those things, I guess you could figure those things out. But overall, not many people fit into these norms, and yet it's what we then internalize as our judgment. We see things through those eyes, and it just is very, very twisted.
Well, as mentioned kind of earlier, we were talking about music and genres, et cetera, and people judging, the hot chick or me or whatever. And again, the TV guide and your Netflix and all that has to have a genre to put Honey Boo Boo in, right? Or the Swamp Guy or all of that crap. And they don't watch you because you're a regular guy doing regular things, that you may just like the paces that you go through. That's less interesting than somebody on the fringes of society that they can now wrap up as normal. And hey, look, this is how everybody in Virginia lives. Well, we all know that not everyone in Virginia is some crazy backwoods redneck, but that's what media makes you often think and puts, here's the state of Virginia under this category on your Netflix. And that's unfortunate, but that's kind of how it tends to be. It's ridiculous, sure. But you're right. Reality TV kind of molds our thinking of that.
Well, it's like the media in any tragedy that happens. It's a horrible thing that took place, but not all airlines have that happen. They talk about all this fear that's coming up because of the Malaysia airline being shut down and then them losing a plane before that. So people are worried about flying. I'm just like, they don't know that it's harder to die in a air traffic accident than getting struck by lightning. But because it's so focused on, and it's the pinnacle of what people are watching on TV, they attribute that to everything else. And so I think that's why the whole judgment thing bothers me, because we're judging these people and what they wore, what they did, or what they look like, and then we start doing that for everybody when that's just one thing.
You said a few minutes ago about the missing a right arm or right hand. When I was 19, a guy did a little Jedi mind screw on me, and I just started working at a factory. And the guy I was going to be working with, the partner on the machine, his name was Stacy. And somehow we were working nights, and somewhere along the lines, he had ever so covertly brought up the idea of, hey, so would you date someone who was missing their hand? I mean, you're a young guy. He must have been in his 20s, maybe early 30s, but I'm sure he was like maybe late 20s. But he had brought in there like, so what kind of girl do you like? What kind of girls do you date? And would you date a redhead? And so, but he covertly threw in, like, would you date a girl who was missing her right arm or right hand? And how I answered this was his cue on whether or not he was going to be friends with me.
Nice.
On whether or not he was going to take 10 seconds or if he was just write me off or if he was going to be a friend of mine. So his daughter had had a birth defect, and the umbilical cord had wrapped around her arm, and she was born without one arm. And I had said, I don't think that would bother me, if the person was a really good person and whatever. And judgments happen from all angles, and you never know when it's going to come, and you kind of have to be this mindful, thoughtful person and think about, well, am I going to get wrapped up into how she looks, or am I going to get wrapped up into how hard she makes me laugh, or how supportive she is? And do you think that is a quality in younger people? It's harder to come by, like it's harder to teach younger people with all the external influences nowadays, or is it something that has always been there and it's almost harder to get older people to influence younger people?
Well, I think by and large, younger people are ready to be molded. So however we can mold them, whatever opportunities we can give them to kind of live up to our standards, the better. Older people, it takes a bit more to sway them, like we talked earlier. But I guess to definitely kind of narrow down to what your question was specifically is it less likely for kids to kind of make that more positive judgment call than negative? Is that what I was hearing?
Right, yeah.
I think it's a matter of what we instill in them. I think it's those values, because truly, if you come from a judgmental home, you're going to tear people up. That's just the way it's going to be. But if you come out of a house where, you're considerate and tolerant, that's what you become. You're a product of your environment. And, I can't paint with such a broad brush to say youth are generally inconsiderate, because often I don't see that to be the case. But then again, I'm not looking for inconsiderate youth either. Like you said, with Malaysia Airlines and people's fear of flying, okay, that's how we portray flights right now. That's an angle. What if we angled ourselves to promote to youth to be tolerant always? And, what if there was a good news network and all you saw was, the captain of the football team handing off, the football to the kid who had Down syndrome to score his senior year? That was one of the greatest news stories you see. And it's shared all over Facebook, all over Instagram, all over YouTube. Why? Because we care about that. We don't often share, down plane in Malaysia again. That sucks, but what do we care about sharing? Depends on what your attitude is. So I think the more good you put out, the more good you get back. And I would equate that the same in that case. If that's what we're giving our kids, that's what they're going to say. So kudos to your parents for instilling those values to really put forth that effort to answer that way.
I think I just didn't want to come across as a dickhead.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Well, I would assume, I guess my assumption would be that kids, no matter how old they are, say 18 being the oldest, haven't yet, in most instances, been so jaded as an adult who's 35, 45 might be, that they still have a chance to be impressionable. They still have a chance to, oh no, it doesn't have to be this way. You haven't lived 25 years of this, some negativity. You're still rather new in the world. You may have seen things or had things happen, but it's not necessarily permanently, you're permanently kind of seeing things from such a horrible point of view. I don't know.
Joshua, what do you have coming up? Do you have some speaking arrangements that are coming up pretty soon?
Yeah, along the lines of book signing here in Cedar Rapids at the Barnes & Noble, which is, again, August 15th at 7 o'clock. But, we're actually going to be all over this state. Regionally, we'll be some high schools in Illinois doing some stuff. And something else I don't actually have the opportunity to mention very often that I will in this forum is if I do a high school during the day or the afternoon or whatever, I'm always willing to do a community event, because you guys have kids, you get it, and if I can connect to kids the way I can, what if we can all get together in the evening, talk about what I talked about, connect to you guys the same way, and then show you how to connect to your kids? Because again, you said your routine, you get home and it's like, okay, I gotta get dinner done, I gotta mow the yard, I gotta do these couple things, wrestle around with kids, bedtime. But what if you alter that a little bit to include some additional conversation about some specific things or whatever that you might overlook? I mean, we're all guilty of it because we can't spend our whole lives thinking about one conversation. But what if once a week you can make those kinds of changes and increase that communication and say, hey, buddy, how's your day? I noticed that you're looking a little different or whatever. And then really kind of up your level of communication, which, then hopefully will result in more positivity. And if they were going through something, they're coming to you. They're not coming to their friends or turning to alcohol or whatever else. So.
I'm sure.
I really enjoy that. I really think it's great. I love the idea of how could you measure that positive influence that you have in your surrounding. If we get there, if you get to that point, I would love to be a part of that somehow.
Cool.
It's going to be pretty awesome.
That would be
We really
amazing.
appreciate you taking your time to come in today. We really enjoyed it.
My pleasure.
Hey, if people wanted, it's manners and motivation.com, right?
Yep, mannersandmotivation.com. You can hit me up on joshuacoburn.com too, and you can get to the Manners and Motivation Tour, etc. So yeah, if schools are out there looking, if people just want me to be present for something, let me know. I'm willing to entertain anything. I have a whole team that'll book you and take care of you. So absolutely.
He's got a team. I want a team someday.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a team someday. Maybe someday we'll be able to say, you know what? Yeah, in Seattle, and we have a team.
You can.
Oh, there's no
can.
better place. This is my second favorite. No, that's not true. It's up there. San Francisco's number one. Chicago's number two. But Seattle is an astounding city. I mean, it is just the best. And not just, the market. It's not just the things that you see on TV, but just walking around the downtown area is phenomenal place.
See, if I go to Seattle, I think I want to just take like 2 or 3 weeks. Just go up there, soak it in. I can't go up there. I can't show up and then turn around and drive back.
Well, we talked about going there, but we could go to Seattle, but we can go to Mount Rainier. There's so many places around there that we can go to. It'd be a blast to go to, but I love Seattle. My first time ever there, my wife got me tickets to Monday Night Football, Niners versus Seattle in their stadium for a graduation present because I'm a late bloomer. And it was like one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was the greatest thing ever. So maybe I need that tattoo. I'm going to have to change my mind.
Yeah. Get a big tattoo.
Big Niner tattoo.
Maybe you'll get the silicone, did you say?
Yeah, you could mold up the logo.
You could do a 3D. You could do a 3D logo.
There you go.
And get it on my leg too. That'd be even better.
Yeah, when I saw your hand, I think Todd was telling me about the ring in your hand, and I thought, well, what's under the skin? Is it stainless steel or something?
Used to be once.
Really?
Not mine, but that's what they used to be. Is stainless steel, titanium. Yeah, Teflon was kind of the next iteration, and then silicone.
Because if you had steel in there and you bumped it on something,
ouch,
pinch. Oh God, bless America.
Or in the wintertime, stainless steel.
Cold, yeah.
Oh shit, I didn't even think about that.
The wind blows through my ears if I have stainless in those or titanium. It gets cold. It does.
Oh shit.
I use like in the winter. Usually, if you see me, I'll be wearing stone because then I can set them on the heater and they'll warm up, and then I can put them in and then put my hood up, and it's it kind of heats my whole everything. Who would have thought, right?
Jesus, Josh, you are starting a whole different mind
set
thing for me. This is awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And nothing I would have ever thought about in 100 years.
I never would have thought of putting stones on heaters and put them in your.
Yeah.
What great little earmuffs.
Honey, my stone's done.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're perfect.
Think hot stone massage. They last. You do the same. That's what I did. I had a hot stone massage. I was like, oh, I have these, because you can carve them out, make them look awesome. I was like, I'll bet that works the same. And it totally did. I was like, total win for me. Like,
oh shit, that's
walking around
fantastic.
the wintertime, just steam coming off your ears.
Well, I don't like flick water at them or anything to like steam up and tighten my face or anything. I guess I could. I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, people usually ask, about my hands because it's so intense to a lot of people.
Well, you shake your hand and I felt it.
Oh, did you? I guess I never thought about that.
Big monkey
Yeah,
hands.
you're bigger than I am. Who isn't, right? But it's the thing kids, especially when I'm speaking, ask most about. And I almost always will tell some story about how, I travel a lot. So it's great for when I want to have chips and salsa. Just put a little salsa in. A lot of people can't pull that off, Or like mobile cat bowls, put a little milk in there. The cats can drink, because I'm a cat guy. I'm one of those. So, I always try to leverage it like that because otherwise it's just like so bizarre to people. They're like, seriously, things, your hands, what the hell? So yeah, I mean,
And what was the motivation behind that?
Well, I'm always again about kind of taking it as far as you can, and that's what back then was really still is, I guess, pretty extreme. And the guy who did it, Steve Hayworth, is just a phenomenal dude. Like, so it was an opportunity as well to meet him and pick his brain, and I mean, just unbelievable guy. You want to talk about no boundaries in life? That guy's thinking is just like amazing. But I got circles here because it's these that, it's the American way, hard work, right? It's full circle. These help me do things. They put food in my mouth. They put, a roof over my family's head. And the second that I'm ever like down, like, oh man, today sucks. It's like, no, you look down and see these. It's like, you got to provide. You got to kick some butt today and make things great for yourself and for other people. So it's almost everything you see on me is like kind of like a reminder of something. I mean, I have the word pride on my lower leg.
Family, yeah.
Yeah, family. Just, it's about never kind of hanging your head and thinking you suck, because chances are good you're going to do that about once a week. And you got to pick it back up because no one else is going to pick it up for you. I mean, I can tell you guys all day long how awesome you are, but if you're not willing to hear it, you're not awesome because you don't.
It keeps us motivated because we hit times where like, well, we feel like we're right on the precipice of going over the edge and it blowing up, but we feel like we've been circling that edge for a while, which is okay. But we have high expectations and we want things to happen, and so it's a good motivation to keep saying we believe in this and what we've had happen over and over again. Not that you aren't solely unique, but we bump into enough people. I guarantee you, when you leave today, we're going to look at each other and go, holy shit, that was one of our best podcasts ever. Because we just keep bumping into people and we're just like, how the fuck did this happen? We're just two guys in the basement and we keep having wonderful experiences like this. Right. And so, I mean, it just keeps us motivated and keeps us going.
Don't describe us as two guys in a basement.
All right. We already talked about we have wives and kids. And it's
but it's just creepy. But
you also discuss communes and things.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship you guys have as long as it's a happy one, right?
There you go.
Oh,
exactly.
See? And that's why he's a motivational speaker. Hey, so check out Josh's book, which is Inspiration on Demand.
Inspiration on Demand, right?
And where can you get that?
You can get it anywhere books are sold. And if they don't have it, tell them you want it because they'll get it in there and hopefully order several. So, yeah.
Amazon,
Kindle, Barnes & Noble. Yeah, you can get the ebook, whatever. You can get it anywhere.
You got an audio version?
We do. I recorded it a few months ago.
I thought I was going to stump him there for a second.
I don't think it's hit yet. I think it's supposed to drop like late August, mid to late August. I don't know. I leave that to the publisher, but I think it's right around there. I recorded it, so if you can't get enough of my voice here, you can totally hook it up there.
You know what? I might totally get the audiobook because there's a lot of times where there's many hours in my day that I listen to audio stuff. So
totally
I'll check out the book, the audiobook.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Josh, for being with us today. Todd, do you have anything else? You have any hot knowledge you want to drop on us before I let us everybody go?
Had a great time. No.
Hey, how would everybody get a hold of us? If you see this and you want to pass it on to somebody else, what would you do?
The best thing to do is go to tpspproductions.com. That way you will see our website. You can get on there. You can get on Facebook, Twitter. I'll work on Instagram. I'm way behind on that, obviously, because Josh has got it blown up big time on there. Also, you can get us on iTunes and Stitcher. Listen to it. You can go on YouTube, type in the Primal Scream podcast, all 4 words, and we will pop up. You'll have a monkey face for a lot of them, but the last 15 or so, you'll have a video podcast to watch too. So
yeah,
that's about it, buddy.
And if you're thinking, hey, wait, tpspproductions.com, that seems new. It is new. It used to be at theprimalscream.org, and you can still type that in. Don't worry. You can still go to your favorite website, theprimalscream.org. But tpspproductions.com, that will also take you to the same webpage. We're just branching off. We're going to start producing
Keep your eyes open for some new podcasts. So
look forward to the bandwagon. That's one of my new favorites.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And so thank you very much, Josh, for coming in today. Todd, as always, pleasure, buddy. And
don't kiss my ass now.
All right, fine. Fuck off. All right, we'll see you later.
Adios.
Good night, gentlemen.
Once again, I was like...